One of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good morning to you. Just gone 6 o'clock. What is it? Thursday, the 5th of March. We're live across the United Kingdom with, of course, Talk Breakfast. It's the home of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock Brit. And yesterday, it was the home of a very, very angry Jeremy Kyle and his audience. This story goes nowhere, does it, Iran? Wherever you are in the UK this morning, thank you for tuning in. If you're waking up, just getting ready to run out of bed, if you're on the way home from the night shift, in the car already, trying to chivvy the kids, it's your views. Listen, it's your views on the news of the day. 0344 499 1000. You can call that number. You can leave a voice note. You can text us 87222. Let's see if we can get on straight away. Now, in the news, I'm just going to read it, because yesterday I went slightly mad by the fact that even the French and the Greeks beat this government to actually providing support for Brits in Cyprus overnight. Yeah, of course. Front page of the Times, allies round on the UK. The Middle East tells Starmer unequivocally, you failed us on any sort of response in Iran. Bahrain angry, the UAE angry, Cyprus angry, saying he was slow and methodical. I'd say he was completely gutless and completely out of his depth. Overnight, Trump continues to lay into Starmer, who yesterday said, I don't care. I'm right. International law says we shouldn't have gone in. Trump says, and I quote, he's a loser. He's got no future. He's got no friends. 344 499 1000. If that doesn't put you in bad enough of a mood, this is apparently when this landed on the Prime Minister and the Cabinet's table on Friday. Guess who scuppered this? Guess who led the Cabinet opposition to US military action because it was against international law and it might affect the wind farms? Ed Miliband. Red Ed. The reality is, peeps, sorry to ruin your Thursday. If Starmer goes, that tow rag could be the next Prime Minister. HMS dragging your feet. You remember the bit yesterday on the show? The boat that we're going to eventually send to defend Brits in Cyprus, despite the fact the Greeks are there, and the French, and possibly everybody else. No. HMS Dragon is still in bloody Portsmouth. It can't leave because it's not ready. This is the United Kingdom. I ask you this. Can we genuinely, well, can Starmer get anything right? Because I'm going to give you what is on the front of every newspaper, because guess what? Whilst the world is in turmoil, whilst a British base in Cyprus that was attacked by a drone is waiting for some sort of governmental response, whilst Trump is leading the charge and everybody else is looking at the UK and going, you're pathetic, guess what's happening? MPs in Parliament are taking part in a sponsored Strictly Dancing event, and I'm not joking, have a watch.
Cha, cha, cha. 2, 3, cha, cha, cha. Very good. Then from there, we're going to do something else. So let's go from the beginning to there. Let's go from the beginning to there. I can't...
Sorry, I obviously, if you are listening on the radio, Lindsay Hoyle, a man with a girl's name, I'll leave you there, and a bunch of MPs dancing with Angela Rippamoff, and there's old Hannah Green, the first day at Parliament with her camera taking selfies. Jesus, the country's an embarrassment. The world's on the edge of World War III, and they're dancing around Parliament. Take a breath. Take a breath. I also want to play another clip before I go on, before I introduce the wonderful Poppy Coleman. Kemi Badenoch, I've said it before, right leader, wrong time. She absolutely cut him a second one yesterday. Go, Kem. Go, Kem.
He's got a sea of orcs and goons who have no idea how anything is working at all. Mr. Speaker, when it comes to welfare, they find the money. When our bases are attacked, they call the lawyers. When our energy security is under threat, they stop drilling in the North Sea. Mr. Speaker, the truth is, or in fact, Mr. Speaker, after last week's by-election, isn't the truth that he is, isn't the truth, they might not like to hear it, but they are going to hear it, Mr. Speaker, whether they like it or not. Is it not the truth that he is prioritising his job security over our national security?
Absolutely, here, and that's my question this morning. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Is this whole appallingly embarrassing response to what's going on, whether you agree that we should have been included in the first wave or not, dragging our feet over boats, over diplomacy? She's damn right. He, on the back of that by-election defeat and that poll that showed the Greens in second place behind reform, is dragging, I'll tell you what he's doing, he's prioritising his party and votes, be it the Muslim community or international law, and that is compromising Great Britain's security. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222, and a very good morning, Poppy Coleman. We've sort of matched. What's going on?
Hell yeah, I think I'm slightly more purple and you're slightly more pink, but yeah, we're in quite a floral kind of springtime mode.
How are you, mate?
Yeah, very well. I would say good, but I've seen the news this morning, so I'm not in the best mood, of course.
MPs dancing in Portcullis House in Parliament to Strictly Come Dancing sort of fair, whilst the world is on the precipice. Can you sum it up?
I mean, I have to talk about this dancing video. So when I saw it first, and I saw it on my timeline, I thought, oh, AI nowadays, you know, people are making the most ridiculous videos, because obviously no one would be so stupid to waste their time when the world is at war to film the most cringeworthy thing I think I've ever seen in my life. Watching the Speaker of the House tootle around a portcullis house. I'm just watching it, you know, on the screen now.
It's just unbelievable. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to absolutely implode. Our ships, right, Pops, can't get to defend Britons in Cyprus, and our MPs are bloody well dancing in the after... It just doesn't make sense,
But it's because they're not serious people.
No.
Okay, and they don't want to be serious people. And you know, regardless of what your thoughts are on this war in Iran, what you can see with the American administration is how seriously they're taking this entire situation. You know, they're literally in the Situation Room. They're having their press conferences. They're trying to direct the military operations. They're speaking with their allies, the UK not included.
No.
Meanwhile, our MPs, what they want to do is mental health dances. You know, it's all about good fun and inclusivity and la 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 la. it just tells you everything you need to know about where these people see their role in the world. You know, they do not see themselves as politicians representing Britain. They see themselves as like having their own good fun as individuals. And then it comes down to Keir Starmer, who was not on the dance floor. I don't think he's got a dancing feeling.
If he would have been, there would have been murder on the dance. I'm sorry. Do you know what I'm saying? Can I talk to you about? Well, I've got to talk to you about lots, but first voice note straight in. Carly, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Carl from Coventry here. Well, still in port then, HMS Dragon. They must have called it HMS Dragon because you know what they say about dragons? They're myths. No one's seen one. Thanks, Jeremy.
Probably an AI photo.
So we had a woman phone the show yesterday, and if you missed it, you can get it on catch up, peeps. And she said, "I'm in Gosport. I'm leaning out the kitchen window, and it's still there." I didn't get a chance to speak to you yesterday. No. You'd have sort of said, "Calm down, Jez." Allies. I mean, yesterday we had Starmer saying, you know, Trump saying Starmer's no Churchill. I just, honestly, for the first time in my life, am embarrassed. And it's not even political. Whether you agree with going in on the first wave or not, to this movable feast that is bloody international law that all these saps use to describe anything. We had Emily Thornberry on going, no, well, if we hadn't given Chagos away, we would have had a legal challenge. Do you think, can I just throw this out to people, do you think the Ayatollah Khomeini and the mad mullahs of Tehran, who have sponsored, and I'm going to repeat this, almost every single terrorist issue for the last however many years, our own defence secretary announced the other day that 20 terror plots had been foiled. Do you think they give a toss about international law? No. Not at all, Pops.
No, well, of course. I mean, again, it's your positioning, right? It's how you get yourself involved in this conflict. You're completely right to say I think there are good reasons not to be involved in the first round. You know, Spain's Prime Minister, who is not a man I love by any stretch of the imagination, did make a principled case for not getting involved with the war. I get it. We've had a bad history of following America into wars. I completely understand that.
But you don't deny your best ally. And this is the thing that infuriates me. You know, when people go, oh, why should we dance to America's tune? He was right about NATO, Trump. Yeah. They have wiped the backside of Europe and the UK for too long. And there's now a leader, whether you like him or loathe him, who's not going to be taken for a ride anymore.
Well, it's also the point of, if you're going to take a position, you hold it consistently. Yeah. And that is what this Prime Minister cannot do. He cannot stand up and say, I disagree with this operation for this reason, this reason, this reason, which, again, I actually do think is a totally legitimate argument to make. I know that's not necessarily a popular opinion sometimes.
You'd respect him if he did that, though.
But I would respect that, and I would understand it, because unlike the Chagos Islands deal, there are legitimate arguments to make. But he hasn't done that. What he's done instead is been behind the story, then he's reacted to it, and you can see how his brain works. He gets into a flap, he gets into a panic. So first he listens to, you know, Red Ed going like, oh, don't get involved in the war.
Apparently this was Ed Miliband who said...
I not got involved, Ed, OK. And then you know, 24 hours passes, and he goes, this is not looking very good. He sees all the headlines and the newspapers, and he goes, well, I guess we better let the Americans use, you know, some of our air bases to fight back against this. Then we have the Cyprus attack. And then whether you like it or not, we are involved now, because we've actually been attacked by the Iranian regime. Yeah. So suddenly the calculation changes. Yeah. Then you do have to get involved in this. And what has he been doing? Well, basically nothing. He's been flip-flopping still. This is what I think makes people so upset with Keir Starmer. If you took a consistent position, if you reacted quickly to when the situation changed, if it seemed like you're in control of the country, and you know what you're doing and you're speaking with your cabinet, people will give you a bit of grace.
Absolutely.
But no one believes that.
I couldn't agree more, and I remember sitting here before you started doing this and talking about, and I know I say it every day, and Christian probably goes, here we go again, he doesn't have the DNA, he doesn't have the political nous or the antennae. I don't care if I would spend my life disagreeing with Keir Starmer. I would respect him an incy-wincy bit if he stood up and said, this is what I feel and this is what is happening. He doesn't. He is pulled from pillar to post by mutinous MPs, but by focus groups, by a backroom team who I don't think know their arse from their elbow. He's suffocated by international law and Lord Hermer, and he tries to be all things to all people, and I've said it every single day. What he ends up doing, and I'm completely with Cammy Bednock on this, he is putting his own job security in front of national security of this country. Liam, good morning.
I've never said this before, but I'm actually starting to feel embarrassed to be English, to be British, because you've always felt that even though we're a small island, they've always been able to hold their own, the history that we've got and everything, and how respected you are across the world. And this bloke has just done all... I mean, fair enough, Tories never really did much in 14 years. But at least they had certain principles, and this government ain't got a clue what they stand for, or they stand by everybody else apart from the British people and British interests.
Thank you, Liam. 6:15. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast. JK here, the home of common sense and, of course, the home of alarm clock Brits. Your voice notes, please, whatever you make of this. Failing our allies, many people are saying. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. I have a slight problem with the text at the moment. It's because I'm utterly useless to doing it. Come here, lovely Christian. Poppy, can I put the other thing to you about the approach? It's all right. Come and join. This is the world's best... Oh, they've cut you off, mate.
That's fine.
That's not fair, is it? Can I just ask you this? Do you think she's right that he is putting the politics of Great Britain in terms of how Labour feel after that Gorton and Denton by-election with the Greens in that poll? Is that what he's prioritising? I mean, we saw him yesterday, not yesterday, even the evening before, at the end of Ramadan, absolutely fine, addressing some Muslims and saying we will never be involved in getting a standing ovation.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I want to think that there's a rational decision-making thing going behind Keir Starmer's head. Because that's the case for most people. But for the Prime Minister, I doubt even that. I mean, I completely understand. I think there is a part of him, or at least his cabinet, who've been urging him not to get involved. Precisely the reasons you mentioned before, I think, because he believes that a lot of his base will be anti-interventionist types. And he's also worried about losing ground to the Green Party, who obviously, you know, they have made their opinions very clear on any involvement with Iran. But then there's another part of me that thinks Starmer doesn't really believe in anything at all. He doesn't even, understand how to get that base behind him or how to appease these people. He's not very good at appeasement. He keeps playing at it, but he keeps failing at it as well.
I know this sounds unpopular, but leadership is surely about making decisions sometimes that aren't popular, but having the courage and the wherewithal to withstand criticism because you know that that decision is ultimately, however unpopular at the time, the right one. This is what I don't see. This guy changes.
He doesn't feel like that about anything. He's been Mr. U-turn. You know, last time I checked, I think we were on 16 U-turns by this government. I mean, it's more damaging than actually going forward with their stupid policies in the first place. I hate a lot of Labour's policies, but at least if you carried on with them, if you're a business owner, if you're a parent, you're sending your kid to a private school, you know, at least then you'd know. You know where you stand.
You don't know where you stand.
But
and
no
neither.
one knows where they
I mean, you know, front page, I'll bring it back, front page of the Times. Allies round on the Week UK. If you're waking up right now, the Middle East tells Starmer, you failed us over Iran. Bahrain, the UAE, Cyprus, all criticising him. Overnight, the Donald to friends. He's a loser. He's got no future. He's got no friends. Say what you want. You what?
So-called special relationship, by the way.
What do you make of that?
Well, we were all told earnestly by, you know, the Number 10 press team that Keir Starmer and Donald Trump have such a good relationship.
No, they don't.
I said at the time, no, they don't. Keir Starmer has no backbone. So Donald Trump thinks, geez, this guy's like, he's easy. I can get him to do whatever I want because he hasn't pushed back on anything I've done because he doesn't believe in anything and because he's a weak-willed person. I said at the time, as soon as there is an issue that Keir Starmer is intractable on, that he is out of step with the Americans on, all of a sudden, I don't think that relationship that's built up behind him, which is not real, is actually going to last.
Somebody said, your hair's on the microphone again, sorry. The truth is this, though. Somebody said to me yesterday, I think it was Michael Gove, the special relationship will endure, but what Keir Starmer has absolutely ensured... I mean, you look, I've said it before. Donald Trump is not in any way right 100% of the time, but at least he has the balls, I have to say this, right, to make a decision and stand by it. Keir Starmer just doesn't do that. Michael, while Starmer fails to defend anything British, military and their families, the French and the Greeks send warships to protect Cyprus. How much will Macron be charging us, as I'm sure it won't be a freebie? Yeah, absolutely. Sean in Gloucester, absolutely bloody furious again. I seriously don't know how much more we can take of this snivelling little weasel, Keith Stalin, and his utterly stupid and humiliating government. He is isolating us from our allies. Rachel Thieves lying that all is rosy when we're skint. Crazy bacon butty muncher Milliprat bankrupting us with pointless and bonkers net zero. The list goes on and on. Poor old Sean, he gets more angry than me. Morning to Lena Thompson. Jez, Starmer is a weak and pathetic loser of a man. Our servicemen have been left with their bits in the wind. If he loves the Muslim vote so much, why doesn't he bugger off to Iran and buy a house there? Mick, sorry, Jez, pardon my language, but what the the F has happened to this country? I'm totally embarrassed. The world is laughing at us. Good morning to Bill in Romsey. So much response again. Morning, Poppy and JK. If you look at the last week, Starmer will not commit to anything. He is destroying, as Badenoch said, our security. He's destroying our oil and gas. Next, he will probably cancel Trident. Yeah, probably. Probably to appease all the idiots that are voting Green. Have our nuclear weapons. Open our borders. Let's have a house for everybody that can come here for no reason at all. And thank you so much indeed, hard-working, tax-paying Brits. We're going to screw you still further. Does my head in. Hi, Poppy, says Lena. Blooming Strictly Come Dancing, whilst our servicemen are looking to the horizon from HMS Dragon Your Feet coming, and it's in blooming Portsmouth. I am beyond angry. And Tracy, morning, Jez. Great show. You've started angry again today. I'm listening from a sunny beach in Egypt. Well, that's going to wind me up even more. I'm a little bit concerned as a nurse. How is your blood pressure after you... It's not great. But you just lie on the beach. You lie there. Just remember what did Churchill say? We will fight them on the beaches. You imagine Starmer. We will negotiate behind the desks. We will sit
We will give away the beaches.
We will give away the beaches because international law says that nurse shouldn't be on that beach in Egypt because it's not right. What about the Egyptians? Honestly, that's what I'm dealing with. And do you understand why I'm getting madder by the minute? You're not talking to me now. You're looking at me in a slightly concerned way, aren't you? That was slightly motherly. You're like, yes, Jeremy, just control yourself.
The problem is, you've got to remember, Keir Starmer's going to be in for at least a couple of months further. So, you know, you've got to keep the blood pressure low until the happy day. That
good morning, Alarm Clock. Are you embarrassed of our response? Are you proud of it? Are you proud of Starmer? Are you embarrassed? I've got some more breaking news to it. It'll just completely get you again. This broke overnight. Oh, everything about this country. The United Kingdom government charter flight that they set to evacuate vulnerable Brits from Oman didn't take off. So the boat hasn't left Portsmouth and the flight hasn't taken off for Oman. A passenger told us exclusively it was a total show, with people banging on windows and having panic attacks as repeated delays forced the pilot to rest. The Foreign Office has been contacted for comment, but they haven't said anything. Safe to say it's been rescheduled. So I don't know why could it not take off? Too hot? International law wouldn't let them go in a certain direction?
You know, I thought Ryanair was an Irish company. I didn't realise that they were offering services to the UK in terms of flight delays. That really is something else.
Or any other airline, for that matter. Good morning, Pete.
Morning, Jezza. I'm now almost convinced that there is something going on with Starmer. He's scared witless of upsetting these people. Why, when they are the minority in this country? Why is he scared to upset the minority? Someone got something on him.
Do you know, this is really interesting, actually, being serious for a minute. A lot of people who... we were talking in the office earlier and they go, oh, you conspiracy theorist to somebody else. And I was listening. And you start to think anything is literally possible under this man, isn't it?
Well, I think that I completely understand the question, because you have to ask yourself, how is it that Keir Starmer, who is the Director of Public Prosecutions, who managed to see off Jeremy Corbyn from the Labour Party, you know, two things that are not easy to do by any stretch of the imagination.
And Miss Jimmy Savile, sorry to get that in, but it's a fact.
Why is he so bad? Why can he not communicate? How can he not have his MPs under control? And why has he failed to make any serious decisions? It doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense,
His incompetence is genuinely staggering. And that's why I bounce all these ideas around in my head, because I cannot make sense of it. Yeah. If anyone was doing that job, even people who know nothing at all about what it means to run, you know, a country at the top, you know, his cabinet, for example, even they would have a better job based on instinct, surely.
Yeah, but that's a really good word, because I don't think there is any instinct.
There's no instinct.
It's DNA. There's nothing. You also said it's reactive. There's nothing proactive from the man. He's an absolute turd. Sorry, I'm just so angry. I'm more angry today than I was yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you, because it's humiliating. It's humiliating to read this stuff about us. You know, I actually thought one of the interesting things that Iranian state media were putting out in the very beginning of this conflict was saying, you know, their typical death to the USA, death to the UK. And I was like, oh, wow, I'm almost flattered that we're involved in this, you know, death recitation, because we're not anywhere near this conflict.
No, of course
we're not relevant anymore.
And what are you feeling if you're a Brit? We had a woman on, and they were part of the families in Cyprus. She was in the compound. The drone missile landed 800 yards from a kid's playground. Sorry, and you're telling me what? You're going to sit in Downing Street and have a discussion and wring your hands?
I know.
Odious. Danny's just let me know that the reason the flight hasn't taken off from Oman, because it was the first government charter flight to make sure we got Brits back, it didn't take off because nothing works for this country. He said apparently the pilot was out of hours and because of stress had to have a sleep for 8 hours. Oh, do you know what? Literally, that's it. I can't... when we come back, Poppy Coburn, we're presenting the breakfast show. I'm going to lie down in a dark room with a wet towel on me at 6:25. Who we got? Matt, good morning.
Good morning, Poppy and Jezza. I don't know why anyone's surprised that Keir Starmer has bottled it and done U-turns and he's not getting involved and he's hiding behind the law. That's what he is. He's a useless waste of space Prime Minister, and the Labour Party is a useless waste of space government. They're killing this country, so we're just going to have to ride it out. Get the tin hats out and let's watch it. It's embarrassing that Greece are having to save our backsides. Greece, of all people. It'll be the Italians next, and they're in permanent reverse. I'm embarrassed to be an ex-veteran. I'm embarrassed of this great nation's become in the last 18 months. Anyway, all the best.
No doubt that the British government has acted in an incredibly weak, equivocal way. It's easy to start a war, very difficult to ensure that the aftermath doesn't descend into complete chaos.
What's your view of that outburst of Trump?
Well, Trump doesn't mince his words, but I think his criticism is justified. I mean, we should have realised where our national interests stood, and he should have expressed immediate support.
We have pursued a ludicrous energy policy, preceding this government, frankly, and all the knock-on effects to that for our economy are...
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 6:28. We're live across the United Kingdom. A very good morning. JK on breakfast on the home of common sense, on the home of the alarm clock Brits. You're waking up to an even angrier Jeremy Kyle this morning with Poppy Coburn, as the United Kingdom is accused by most of its allies in the Middle East of being completely weak. Yes, they tell Starmer, you failed us on Iran, as Bahrain, the UAE and Cyprus joining condemnation. And let's just say what Pops and I were saying, right? Whether you agree or disagree about initially supporting the American strikes in Iran, denying your closest ally the right to use their bases because you're so stuck behind the ridiculous nature of international human rights law or whatever, to watch a missile aimed towards a British base, RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus, and then sit there on your wet backside waiting and watching while the French and the Greeks and every other bugger in the world turns up with a ship. Even I said a sheep, it probably would be a sheep. And us, we decided to send HMS Dragging Your Feet, which is still stuck in Portsmouth. We've discovered this morning that Ed Miliband led the revolt. You can't do that. We need to make sure oh my God. And ladies and gentlemen, if you're waking up to this breakfast show, I swear this is true on my life. Whilst the world is at a precipice, whilst we saw yesterday, did you see the pictures probably of the first, the submarine, the Iranian submarine that was downed by a US submarine, thank you G-Spot, the first boat to be sunk in warfare by a submarine since the Second World War. What were the MPs of the United Kingdom doing? They were taking part in a Strictly Come Dancing event in Parliament. Have a watch, have a listen, this is real. Oh.
Cha, cha, cha. 2, 3, cha, cha, cha. Very good.
You've got the Speaker of the House of Commons, who's got a woman's name, dancing with Angela Rippamoff from Rip Off Britain, Angela Rippon, and they're all doing... I can't... Ian, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Ian from Hemel Hempstead. A couple of points on Keir Starmer, one on defence and one on the boats. Firstly, he's managed to sit on defence. The only problem is that he's taken about a week to decide which fence to sit on, and he has finally stopped a boat. Unfortunately, it was a great big Royal Navy frigate going out of Portsmouth. So, well done, Starmer.
That is very funny.
It's true, though, isn't it? It's the first boat that Starmer stopped.
And it's a big one.
And one of our own. Can I bring it on to another story overnight, which, again, I'll just let you talk about. There were many protesters who took to the streets in Manchester last night to celebrate Iranians, happy that this mad mullah had been taken and that they have a chance of freedom in the future. But they clashed. They clashed with mourners at a candlelit vigil for the Ayatollah Khomeini at the Friends of the Islamic Centre of Manchester. The Tories quite rightly told the Met to stop the hate marches in London. Nothing happens. Let's have a look at a bit of footage of this. This was last night. Thousands on the streets celebrating the fact that Iran has a chance to be free, and then clashing with the people who... And can you explain the mentality of somebody, right, who mourns a man who persecuted, oppressed, raped, murdered, pillaged and destroyed the lives of millions of Muslims? Can you explain that to me, or am I missing the point?
Well, I have to ask the question of why are there people who support the Ayatollah in the UK? That's the first question that comes to mind. Why are there student groups within UCL that are setting up memorial services for a man who committed the mass murder of his own people just a couple of weeks ago? He, even back in 1988 even, pardon me, was killing political prisoners en masse. You know, that was a war crime. You know, one of the worst war crimes since World War II. Why are there people in my country that are celebrating this sort of thing? That is
not your country.
Well, apparently it's not my country.
International law says you can't say that.
But it's a serious question, you know, and this is not just the first conflict this has been the case for. You know, you could ask the same thing about October 7th. Why are there so many people in the country that were celebrating the terrorist attacks of October 7th?
Do you know what I said the other day? Do you not think it's slightly ironic that the Jewish community, who I'm incredibly supportive of, who live knowing that many of the mantras of the Muslim community is to destroy the Jewish race, millions of Iranian Muslims have been freed from the oppression of the Ayatollah Khomeini by a joint force of Americans and Israelis. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Let's cross now to it's so good to speak to my next guest. It's been a while. Former fight pilot, now top military analyst. We say a very good morning to Sean Bell. Hello, buddy. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Jeremy. How are you, sir?
Well, raging. And I know you don't do politics, but honestly, can I just ask you, as a military man, HMS Dragging Your Feet is still in Portsmouth. Whatever your politics, it doesn't look good, does it? Whilst the Greeks can mobilise and the French. It's pathetic, Sean.
I wouldn't use quite that strong a word. I mean, it's what people have to understand in a way is that these things, they've got to have people on, they've got to have weapons on, they've got to be ready to go. I think it's really unfortunate when we've got 6 of these ships that we haven't got one ready to go. But I think part of that reflects just how sparse the military is these days. So, yeah.
I agree with that. Stuff overnight, which I wanted to ask you about. The US, they say, are ready to put boots on the ground, but I also heard about the Kurds as well, and there is some activity. Can you bring us up to date in the way only you know how, about how and what we're at? Because I think Pete Hesketh, the Secretary of State for War, last night said, we've only just begun.
Yeah, I think some of this obviously is rhetoric. It's if you ask me to get inside President Trump's head, I'm afraid I will be unable to do that. I think when the 2 objectives that America had, one of which was to stop Iran being able to produce enriched uranium, and the second one was effectively regime change. Within a day, they had effectively wiped out all the leadership of Iran, and it felt like that was a great opportunity to pause and say, right, either come to the table and talk properly, or we're going to continue. The fact is that they continued with this operation. They've now been, the Americans, writing down Iranian military capability. We only saw literally this last day that sinking of the Iris Dina by the American submarine. I'd like to correct you, it's not the only time since the Second World War. You'll remember the Belgrano was sunk during the Falklands
not
campaign.
by a submarine, I was told. I said by a submarine.
It was a submarine.
Right, hold on a second. You, Damien, you are toast. I've been humiliated by Sean Oh, he's saying I said US submarine. I'm not listening to you anymore, G-Spot. I bow down for you, Sean. Sorry, apologies. Terrible.
No, but the point is that the further you write the Iranians down, Iran can't win, but they just don't have to lose.
Yeah.
And the problem is, the longer this goes on, it feels to me, the more America gets itself dragged in. Boots on the ground. I don't see any appetite whatsoever for the Americans to do that. All this is doing is ratcheting up the pressure on Iran to try to come to the table and start talking seriously. Eventually, Trump needs an off-ramp. It'd be really interesting to see how he navigates that.
And talking militarily as well, I was reading yesterday afternoon, because I'm sure we're all in the same sort of... But we're concerned, we're scared, we're fascinated, all those things rolled into one. That actually the capability in terms of the anti-aircraft missiles to basically they've a lot more equipment. Whether I'm reading this right or wrong, we were told yesterday, the Iranians, than even the Americans realised. Do you know anything about that?
Well, I think what we have to do here is that there are a series... The Iranians don't have a lot of military capability. They have a lot of these ballistic missiles that leave the atmosphere, go into space and come down again. They are very difficult to shoot down. And there's only certain capabilities in the world. The Americans got the Patriot and the THAAD system. But of course, those missiles, those defensive missiles, there's only so many of them, and you can't easily produce more. And I think if you look at it from the cast iron facts, there are probably Iran had more of these missiles than America had the ability to shoot them down. So what America is doing is, let's not wait till they get fired. Let's hit them in the ground. Let's hit them in the storage facilities. Let's hit them on the launchers. And that seems to be the American strategy at the moment.
Do you see this dragging on? You made a really salient point there, Sean, about, you thought they might take out the leadership and bring the Iranians to the table. The Iranians have responded by vowing death. The Middle East in its entirety, or separate parts of it, could absolutely get involved. You don't now see this as a quick, short, sharp operation. This could become the nightmare that many people assume?
Well, the thing that will stop it, Jeremy, is just running out of weapons.
Yeah.
The Americans have had big stockpiles. They've been feeding them into Ukraine. They've got to keep some in spare. And the Israelis have been using a huge amount as well. And you can't just nip down to Walmart and fill up your haversack again. Unfortunately, these things take months and years to produce, not days. And I suspect what's going to happen is the US military is going to be saying to Donald Trump, look, eventually you're going to have to find a way of navigating out of this. And I think the longer it goes on, the more the Iranian people start suffering, and the danger is then America starts being seen as the enemy. I do think we're going to have to find a way out of this, but it's quite difficult to see how at the moment.
I am with you, and I've said from day one, for all my criticism of the stance of this government and Starmer, and I think this point is very relevant, there is history with America diving in and doing good, many people will say, and then extricating themselves, and you're left with a political vacuum. And that, I think, is the real issue here for the people of Iran, which is really important. I don't think anybody can disagree what that mad mullah is. And of course, what they have done for sponsoring terrorism across the world is a relevant criticism. And of course, as you said as well, Sean, the build-up of nuclear weapons. Can I just ask you one thing? We talked about it at the beginning. Ian Duncan Smith made the point yesterday that he thinks there's a deeper reason that HMS Dragon is still in Portsmouth, that a lot of the operational things that would happen usually with the Navy, because presumably you'd know there was a build-up of the American fleet in the Gulf, and presumably if you had either the nous or the equipment, I don't know, you would allow that to happen. He says it's financial and that we are behind the eight ball, not just because of those cuts, but right now we're not allowing our Navy, certainly, to be doing the operational things that would have them ready and prepared. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think you have to look at priorities. You know, I spent my lifetime, I started in the Cold War, then we did expeditionary warfare. We set up our Air Force, our Navy, our Army for going and fighting distant wars, and generally against people who couldn't fight back that well. We've just recently had one of our biggest aircraft carriers do a sort of 9-month Middle East push, or a Far East push, and actually that just takes quite some time to recover from. I do also think that I don't think the UK ever wanted to get involved in this fight. I know you started out with one of your famous little rants about it, but the harsh reality is we shouldn't be bullied as a country into getting involved in America's war, particularly because so far as I know, America's not made the legal case for doing this. And last I saw, the missiles, these ballistic missiles we talked about, technically, they can't get to the UK. I'm aware of programs, the military is aware of programs that the Iranians are trying to find missiles to get to America. If they can get there, they can get to us, and we have absolutely no protection in this country from ballistic missiles. Do you want to be sat there in a studio in London, knowing there's something being launched, but having no idea when it's going to hit, where it's going to hit, and knowing that we can't defend ourselves?
We can disagree on that, but I absolutely can say categorically, whether, and I've said from the beginning, whether we agreed to be involved at the beginning or not, I don't care what anybody tells me. The shame I feel as a Briton to think that Greek frigates and French ships got to protect Brits in RAF Akrotiri before our Prime Minister even decided to respond. That, for me, and we don't want to get political, but that, to me, is a completely different matter and is a disgrace.
And I'm sure you'll know that I have to humbly but disagree with you. The Greeks aren't there to protect Akrotiri. They're there to protect Greek interests there. And I think what's been interesting about the whole attack of Akrotiri, I have a family member there.
Do you?
Inevitably, I'm concerned. But actually, my overwhelming sense is pride that our young men and women are there standing on the wall. We have to remember that the news initially reported there was a strike on the runway.
Yep.
That is not true. What actually happened was that an unguided device, which didn't actually go off, hit an American facility.
Right.
So it looks like it was targeting American troops that were actually posted on Cyprus. Quite prudently, we moved lots of the families off the sovereign base at Cyprus, but the British military operation continued as is. That puts a very different spin on us being attacked. We weren't. This was an attack almost certainly from Hezbollah, almost certainly from the Lebanon, didn't explode, but we rightly, prudently have to be careful. If we're operating with the Americans, the danger is we get attacked as well.
Listen, it's always great to have you on. Of course, the Hezbollah attack would have been funded by the Mad Mullahs, but listen, you and I are not going politics. I will say this, there is no doubt, you just made the point, you know, I mean, let me actually ask you that directly to finish, Sean. Are we at risk right now from any Iranian missiles in the UK?
We are, yes, but the fact is that we've seen a gradual drop-off in the number of attacks coming in. And if I was a military advisor to Iran, the Brits are not the problem. We have quite deliberately made the point that we're not going to get directly involved in this. You know, what they're trying to do is to incite sort of rebellion in the Middle East against the American efforts, and that's why they're firing against so many other countries.
Yep.
I think it's highly unlikely that we'd be a target.
Mate, it's great to have you on. As ever, the smartest guest and the man with all the information. We appreciate it very much. We send our thanks to you. Sean Bell, former fighter pilot, now military analyst. Listen, the most important thing about this, Pops, is we get all arguments. And you said it, and he said it. And I don't have a particularly clear view. I put great store on the relationship with America, I do. I don't agree or disagree with everything that Donald Trump says. I repeat to you what I said to Sean Bell. I am utterly embarrassed by our response. I am utterly embarrassed with the negative posturing and inability to make a decision that we've touched upon. That's real for me.
Well, that's just something we see every day, unfortunately. And it's a shame that the rest of the world has been exposed to the kind of man that Keir Starmer is.
Welcome to our pain.
I mean, but it's true, isn't it? That's the most embarrassing thing. It's literally having to go around and say, yeah, by the way, this is the person that we've elected to represent the United Kingdom. This guy.
Robert Morris, was the dancing video to show the world how out of step the Labour Party is? From Robert Morris, who likes what sort of dancing? Morris dancing, brilliant, well done. Mark, all right, I'm trying. Mark Selby, Mark from Selby, right, this is brilliant. Oi, Jez, can you and Poppy lay off our MPs for dancing? They're stressed, for Christ's sake, and anxious, for heaven's sake. Today they're holding a jumble sale and an oblique competition whilst the world burns. Please, 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 Donald, come and take over the UK government, because the lot in Parliament have gone full tonto. Morning, Bruce.
Good morning. It's Bruce here. Keir Starmer, the U-turn man, frightens the life out of all of us. But the biggest concern I've got is done that many U-turns. The next one he might turn into Jeremy Corbyn. Old Jezza Corbyn, eh? Absolute raving lunatic. I'm doing my brain in.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Just gone 7:15. You're waking up on Thursday, the 5th of March, to, well, the ongoing story of what's going on in the Middle East. The Middle East allies have rounded on Keir Starmer this morning, telling him you failed on us. Bahrain, the UAE, joining Cyprus in criticising the PM's rather leaden-footed response. The boat that he promised to send to Cyprus, that still hasn't left Portsmouth. We just spoke to Sean Bell, a military expert, who said that report in Cyprus is inaccurate. I'm not getting involved in politics with Sean. Sean's a straight-down-the-middle military guy. What he said that's quite frightening is they might well have weapons in Iran that could reach the United Kingdom. He said we're not involved. I would respectfully say this to Sean and people listening. By allowing the Americans to use the bases to launch attacks on Iran, which I think was right, genuinely, that's my opinion. You might think differently. Poppy, who's with me today, thinks that we shouldn't have been in the initial thing, but agrees about that as well. We actually essentially are part of the war now, so it's not defensive. Yep. We are part of it, and we could be held responsible. Graham, good morning.
Starmer's all right saying he's sending a warship over to Middle East. That'll be doing a U-turn in Waterham Way as well. Another U-turn coming. Turn that ship round. Got to do a U-turn.
Brilliant. Bill's in Cheshire. This is brilliant. You'll love this, Poppy. Royal Navy failure. Another ship. This is true. HMS Duncan could have left Portsmouth yesterday, but it didn't because, wait for it, its engines are not very reliable in warmer waters. Ha ha. So Britannia rules the waves, but only if they're cold water waves. What is the name? I can't do this anymore.
But what is the point of having these ships, which are incredibly expensive, if we don't use them? So, I mean, genuinely, that is the question. Use it or lose it. What's the point of having a navy? What's the point of having an army or a navy or any of this stuff if we're apparently just not going to use it?
Rule Britannia. Britannia rules the cold waves. Britain never can't do the rest.
I'm not saying we should just go and invade France. Well, maybe I am. But we should, but when we're actually in a situation where we've been attacked, You know, and those ships would be quite useful to prevent.
And we haven't got as much as we should have.
Why is it still in port?
Absolutely.
So why is it still in port?
No
What's
idea.
happening?
Jeremy and Poppy, how embarrassing. The footage of the dancing politicians and the footage in Manchester at the vigil just about says it all about this goddamn country. Tony, everyone is entitled to free speech, but we're also entitled to withdraw funding. I suggest we should withdraw all funding from lefty universities that seem to be supporting our enemies.
Well,
I have this argument with my daughter every morning. I couldn't agree. Well, not every morning. Gary Bolden, in Bolden. Yes, do you know where Bolden is? Neither do I. Starmer hesitation goes to show what politicians have done to this country. He's scared in case minorities kick off. We need to deport anyone against this nation, and we will never be taken seriously again. Good morning, Poppy and sidekick Jezza. As a naval veteran, we sailed in just 3 days in 1982 to the Med. This is embarrassing. I believe, as an ex-naval man, Starmer isn't fit to PM. Stick to breakfast clubs, you complete bleeding loser, says David. Well, you know what I mean? And yesterday we had, you weren't here, we had Rachel Thieves standing up saying the economy's fine. She doesn't sound like Starmer. Well, she probably does. The economy's fine. She doesn't even know how to add up. Honestly, I've got to the point where I find it very hard. Ian in London, I bet the dancing was good last night at Portcullis House. The routine must have been spectacular, as it must have contained many U-turns in the routine. Have a great day, Pops and Jezzy in London. If you are just waking up whilst the world is on a precipice, literally in the Middle East, whatever your views on it, if you're watching on YouTube, last night our MPs took part in a Strictly Come Dancing dance-off in Portcullis House. And you just said it to me during the break. It infuriates you.
I just can't... every time I watch that video of them kind of like grinning and having a giggle and dancing in their sensible shoes, it just makes my stomach turn. And you know,
what sensible shoes?
Well, some of those shoes it does. But I don't want to be mean. I don't want to come across as I'm just bashing people unnecessarily. But the question is, in what universe is that an appropriate thing to do? You know, I'm not pretending I'm some kind of political genius here, but it doesn't take like a massive brain to understand, hey, if the country's kind of in a bit of a proxy war situation at the moment, you know, if there are missiles flying over the Mediterranean, you know what you shouldn't do? Dance and laugh.
Yes.
Like, what?
Yes.
Why?
It's quite serious.
Why film it? If you're going to do it, at least do it in a room where no one can see you. Why are you doing it in Portcullis House with apparently a professional filming being done? I can see the new MP, Hannah Spencer of the Greens, as well, as apparently joined in that awful lime green suit that she's
there
wearing.
she is, if you're watching. Lovely.
Yeah.
So she's been elected, right? But bear in mind, she wants to give up NATO, she wants to give up almost everything. But there she is in her trainers. My mother will be turning in her grave because she's dead. They don't take it seriously. I'm so with you. I genuinely am with you.
I want MPs in Parliament who are actually different, who would look at this stuff and go, it's not my job, it's not what I'm here for. I don't know about you, but I don't dance at work, Jez. I've never danced.
I've never danced. That's why I became a DJ.
I've never had
Can you dance, by the way?
Of course. Oh, no, tu la feet. I've got it from my dad. I might injure myself if I try and dance. That's the truth.
That's what I love about you.
But I'm not going to lie. I've never had the desire to dance at work. I think most people, if they've got a real job, have never had the desire to dance at work. Because it's just, it tells me that you're doing some fake job. You've got enough time to do stupid stuff like this.
I couldn't agree more. Ian says, good morning, Poppy and Jez. Starmer has disgracefully turned his back on our allies and friends, criticising the actions against the Iranian terrorist regime, humiliating the UK public and military, but silent on Iran attacking other Muslim allies and UK sovereignty and welcoming China into the UK. The man is a traitor and, as Ian Duncan Smith and Michael Gove said yesterday, a risk to national security. Where is the political opposition against this man? The silence is treasonous and unrepresentative of the people. Absolutely incendiary. He said, I'm incendiary at this what show of a government. Can I bring it to something you touched upon? Another big story in the newspapers today. Labour plunged into a fresh Chinese spying crisis yesterday after a Labour MP's husband was arrested. Lobbyist David Taylor, who is married to the Labour MP Joni Reid, was held by Scotland Yard on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. Police have also picked up 2 other men believed to have been advisors during the Tony Blair government during a series of raids. Badenoch said to Starmer, grow a backbone and treat Beijing as the threat we all know it is. No charges as yet, so an ongoing criminal investigation. But honestly, there we go. We've heard this before. Yeah. We've absolutely heard this story before. We're infiltrated by Chinese spies now. The husband of a Labour MP. I give up.
I've got to confess, when I saw this story, I literally, I laughed out loud. Not because I think it's funny with a big spider on, but I was like, can Keir Starmer's luck get any worse than it already is.
Do you know what the wife said, the MP on the front? Look at this on the front. I never suspected my husband. You know what? People have affairs, people have gambling addictions or take drugs. Do you think you'd know if your boyfriend was a Chinese spy?
I think so. I think, I think there would be some signs, like maybe money coming from places you didn't expect.
Why have you just got 20 grand from Beijing from an account I've no idea about?
Actually, to be fair, if my boyfriend suddenly said I got loads of money and took me on holiday, I wouldn't ask any questions.
You wouldn't care. You are that shallow, your boyfriend could be a spy for China.
If he's listening to this, if you do.
What do you mean if he's listening to this? Does he not listen to you every day?
He's probably in bed, fast asleep.
Lazy left-wing kids.
Yeah, there you go.
But it is frightening, actually, and we've, on this show, we've spoken to Ian Duncan-Smith and many who have been outlining the concerns about China for a long time. This is another story, right?
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, I think it's the fact that it's not the first time that we've had a China spying case. There are so many aspects of the China spying case as well which are quite concerning. I mean, there's one case in court at the moment, so we can't talk too much about the details, but it's about Border Force. The Border Force has potentially been infiltrated by a Chinese spying network. I mean, they, to be honest
is this
with
the Border Force
they can't make it any
lets
worse.
a 48-year-old man with a white beard and wrinkles in his face through into England because he believed he was a 14-year-old schoolboy? Is that the same Border Force?
I mean, the stuff that I do find concerning, though, is that Parliament is incredibly leaky. It's not hard.
It's not leaky. They're too busy dancing. They're not doing anything.
That's precisely what I mean. They're not serious. And also, it raises questions about, obviously, Keir Starmer has been to China not that long ago. We've had this super embassy being approved. There are serious questions to be asked about whether or not, if China is going to be the new world hegemon, where is our position on this? Because we know America is hostile. We know they're working hard against Chinese espionage, but we don't seem to be taking it that seriously.
No, that Chinese super embassy is the biggest. Will be the biggest Chinese embassy in the world. And where is it? Right in the middle of the United Kingdom, amongst everything that matters.
Yeah.
Graham Pack, can the dancing MPs just foxtrot off? He's in Bushing. U-turn, cha-cha-cha. Brilliant. Robert Morris. Was the dancing yesterday a charity event to save the Iranian Navy? It might be. It's fair to say, says Melanie, that HMS... We've had this already, but the HMS Dragon that's still stuck in Portsmouth, if you're waking up, is the only boat that Sir Keir Starmer has managed to stop. Bill, Labour dancing, flat-footed and useless, displaying Anne Widdecombe's dancing ability, but sadly without her intellect, political nous and character. James from Plymouth. So the real reason for not putting the Royal Navy in the Channel as immigrant deterrent is not political will. It's because we've got no bleeding Navy. And this from Linda. HMS Dragon, unready for deployment, but HMS Duncan available to go. Go figure. MPs dancing, I am at my wits' bleeding end. And George Lowther. Morning, Jez. I think everyone's missing the point of Ed Millipede being our Prime Minister. He will bring the great British Navy back to its epic form and glory with sailing gunships, says George in Leicester. That's you and me done for the week. You back on Monday?
I will be.
I wonder what joys will meet us then.
Probably two other wars.
Yes.
MPs will be caught on video going on a little unicycle around Parliament Square.
Yeah.
And the economy will be crashed.
Yes, but I'm going to make a promise to you as we head towards the news. I'm going to come back in a very, very public. Great Britain is still screwed. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87333. We'll kick off next with... I've no idea. See you after the news.
Welcome to Down the Local, the show that goes from pub to pub across the country, speaking to the punters about the subjects driving us all nuts at the moment.
That Rachel Reeves, Rachel Thieves, Rachel McCown.
I don't really know Meghan Markle. I know Meghan Markle's from Suits, and that's about it.
I don't know about anyone else, and I don't know where this is going. I have 0% beard, and I feel
raising the flag, I think, is symptomatic of its desperation.
Is public transport good value for money?
No, it isn't.
You really don't like speaking to people.
DAB Plus, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes, is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good morning, or indeed welcome back. It's JK on Breakfast to Talk, the home of common sense and the home of alarm clock Brits. There's so much going on. The thing about this show is your involvement massively important. You can get us via phone or leave a voice note on 0344 499 1000. You can text me 87222. Whatever you think. If you're waking up Tuesday, what is it, the 5th of March, the Iranian situation continues. You might have a different view to me. I might have a different view to you, but we're all massively concerned about what's going on. Overnight, the Allies have rounded on weak Great Britain. The Middle East telling the impotent Starmer, you failed us on Iran as Bahrain, the UAE and Cyprus say, come on, step up to the plate. Trump overheard... continues to lay into Starmer, calling him, "You're a loser, you've got no future, you've got no friends." Loads of people have rung and said, listen, maybe we shouldn't have been in that initial wave. You might have that view, but here's the thing that is absolutely relevant, right? We wake up and we hear that the United Kingdom can't even get a boat to Cyprus yesterday to defend our troops, servicemen and women and their families at RAF Akrotiri, right? The French arrive in a frigate, the Greeks arrive in a bleeding frigate, everybody's there, but HMS Dragon its feet, right? Our frigate's stuck in Portsmouth, right? And we can get into the why and wherefores, and I am not, by the way, blaming Starmer wholeheartedly for the pathetic state of the defences of this country. That goes back years when successive governments thought it was an absolute easy thing. You know what? Let's just cut defence. There's a Cold War. Well, now we're on our backside. We had Sean Bell, the military expert. I'm not trying to frighten you. I'm trying to tell you how it is, saying that we do not even know, right, whether Iran has weapons, missiles that can reach us. The truth of the matter is, by allowing our bases to be used, we are part of this. And what so many people who are listening and watching tell me is you just need a Prime Minister who has the gumption, the nous, the bravery to lead, right? Let us know what's going on. Tell us the truth. But if you really want to start your Thursday in the worst possible way before my next guest, ladies and gentlemen, this is the headline in the Telegraph as the world burns, MPs dance. Yesterday in Paul Cully's house in Westminster, a bunch of MPs who are supposed to be getting on with running our country and protecting us and informing us spent the afternoon taking part in a Strictly Come Dancing event. I'm not even joking. Nathan, good morning.
I'll tell you what this dance thing reminds me of, with the old MPs and whatnot. Reminds me of when all the NHS staff during COVID were doing TikTok videos and doing dancing and that kind of stuff. Just when, you know, everything's going to pot, it's like nothing else is actually going on in the world. The mind boggles. Anyway, have a great day. Jamie, Tenerife.
You're in Tenerife because it's bloody safer there. Isabel Oakeshaw's just beyond. We're going to follow this story up, actually, about the plane. We heard overnight that the first UK government charter flight, this about sums up this country, set to evacuate vulnerable Brits from the Oman, didn't take off. A passenger told Sky News it was a something show, with people banging on the windows and having panic attacks as repeated delays forced the pilot to rest. We're getting some breaking news from Isabel Oakeshaw. We'll check that out. Should we read that now or check it out? OK, Isabel's been on and she says, we cannot organise anything, can we? Knowing Brits, I thought most likely the passengers were kicking off as the drink service hadn't started, but I've just spoken to the FCO and she said apparently, oh my God, the plane had a technical fault. So the plane can't take off from Oman because it's got a technical fault. The boat can't leave Portsmouth because, you know, it's just not bleeding ready. And while the world burns, our MPs are having a dance-off. I literally am at my end of my bleeding tether. We say a very good morning. The former Conservative government minister is going to get it all from me today. Steve Baker, I can't do this anymore.
Well, Jeremy, you present the situation with great skill. I mean, it does look absolutely ridiculous to have MPs dancing. I'd like to think if I was still an MP, I wouldn't have gone because they should have thought about what it looks like. But yeah, what a mess. I'm also a former aerospace engineer, so with the technical fault on the aircraft, I mean, to be fair, if the pilot thought the aircraft was unfit to fly, he couldn't go.
Of course.
But honestly, it does play into a terrible narrative of decline, doesn't it?
And can I just say to the person who sent this anonymous text, in the news that they're thinking of vaccinating turkeys of bird flu in readiness for Christmas. And this person said, I think we should vaccinate all MPs with bird flu injections because they're all a bunch of bleeding turkeys. Anyway, you're so right about the optics, Stevie. And it's just... And I do want to make the point on a serious note that whether one agrees or not with those initial strikes, the fact of the matter is what most people are talking about is the international... We've seen it domestically, Steve, for 18 months, but the international reaction to a man who yesterday was, I think, quite rightly by Badenoch accused, and also in this show by Ian Duncan Smith and Michael Gove, of putting personal job security before international security. We're a laughingstock, and that is a fact.
Yeah, unfortunately, Labour MPs have a view of international law, treaty law that is, which is idealistic to the point of being fit really only for children. The fact is that President Trump has gone in and acted against Iran, I think largely because if Iran had a nuclear weapon, they would use it against Israel. That's what Israel believes. I know that because they told me. And so Trump has taken this action, and as a result, we now find that our own bases, our own people are under attack. And under such situations, you just can't be too squeamish or idealistic. You have to defend your own people. You know, that Type 45 destroyer, Dragon, with a massive, amazing air defence system, really should have been in the region long since. And it is an extraordinary reflection that they didn't send it. But yeah, I'm afraid Labour's idealism, and it is, I'm afraid, there's no getting away from it, it's daft lefties with idealistic thoughts about the kind of utopia we can create, which have ended up leaving democracies like ours at the mercy of monstrous tyrannies like Iran. And when that happens, you know that so-called international law has gone terribly wrong.
I had Emily Thornberry on yesterday. It's important to get all sides of the argument. And she said, well, we had to give away the Chagos Islands and £35 billion, despite the fact that we're skint, because if we hadn't, we'd have faced an international law challenge. All I hear about is international law, and I want to shout in the faces of these people and go, do you think the mad mullahs of Tehran, when they sponsored terrorists across this country and across this world, and I'll do it every day, Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, ISIS, do you think those people who hide like Herma behind international law could look the parents of those kids that were blown to pieces in the Manchester Arena bombings and be able to say, actually, this is the most important thing? I don't have to necessarily, Stevie, agree with everything that Donald Trump does, but I do believe that we have a Prime Minister who is more interested in trying to save his own backside and his own parties before what you do as a leader, which is sometimes have to make unpopular decisions for the good of this country.
Well, I don't doubt that he is absolutely consumed by his own survival and what it would mean for the Labour Party if he went. But to pick up on your point about could such people as Herma and others look the families of victims in the eye and say this is more important, I'm rather afraid they probably could. That's my opinion. They probably could. And that they think that because, of course, the treaty law that's been established internationally was put there in the aftermath of the Second World War. But there has to be, to try and prevent tyranny. And so that's what motivates them. But there just has to come a point where you say, this is not working anymore, everyone. You can see it's not working. And that point came long ago. The European Convention on Human Rights and the way it's been extended by its judges is another example. I'm afraid the international system's breaking down, but in the midst of a conflict where your own people are coming under attack is not the moment to be standing on ludicrous, naive, childish idealism about what the international system is. After all, there just isn't a world government to enforce these laws. We just need sometimes to work out what we think the right thing to do is and navigate our way to it. But in the end, the international system will have to change, and this Labour government are making us look fools and naive idiots by taking the views that they are.
Steve, you spent a long time in Parliament. What do you make of him? Talk to me. I mean, I always talk about the man in terms of the DNA. I do apologise to my viewers and listeners. I just don't think he has the nous, the political DNA, the antennae, the gut vibe, finger on pulse feeling to lead. I just think he's which focus group says what, and also absolutely you can accuse him of now trying to save his own backside with the emergence of the Greens after Gorton and Denton.
Well, Keir Starmer and I are on nodding acquaintance. And obviously, we know who one another is, but we don't have one another's mobile phone numbers. But my observation of Keir over the years is that when he arrived in Parliament, it was obvious to everyone he was going to lead the Labour Party. And I remember his first big speech was on the first attempt people had to put assisted suicide through. And he just stood up and made a lawyer's speech. He just catalogued the law. He didn't really make a political argument. He didn't really inspire. And I think that really characterises the man all the way through, a loyally uninspiring, dreary approach to life and what he's trying to achieve. And this sort of thoroughgoing lack of charisma is now letting us down. It is true that he saved the Labour Party from the Corbynistas. The Labour Party had split. Some people, MPs, thought they should stay with the Labour Party and save it from Corbyn. Others left and formed the Tiggers, which some of your listeners might remember. And Starmer led the attempt to rescue the Labour Party. And actually, by preventing a Corbyn-led government, Starmer actually served the nation there. I give him credit for that.
He also backed Corbyn when Corbyn was the leader on almost everything Corbyn stood for. And this is how... Can I just jump in, actually? Some breaking news. Yeah. Isabel Oakeshott from Dubai can't come on because she's travelling, but she says, I can confirm, having spoken to the Foreign and Commonwealth Office, that first flight will leave later today. But the truth is, the first UK government charter flight set to evacuate last night, Brits from Oman, didn't work because of, ready for it, peeps, a technical problem, which just about sums up how crap we are.
Honestly, I do feel sorry for the engineers. As a former aerospace engineer, I was an airworthiness engineer myself. We don't know how serious that technical fault was. If it was trivial, the pilot could have chosen to go anyway. But if it was serious and the pilot thought it threatened the safety of the passengers, well, of course, he had to stay on the ground, to be fair to him. But yeah, it does look bad.
Steve, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about briefly, this story that keeps coming back and back, and I'm not into conspiracy theorists at all, Labour plunged into a fresh Chinese spying crisis yesterday after a Labour MP, Joni Reid, her husband, a lobbyist, David Taylor, was held by Scotland Yard on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. Police also picked up 2 other men believed to have been advisors during the Blair government during a series of raids. Now, Kemi Badenoch told Starmer to grow a backbone and treat Beijing as the threat we all know it is. We've seen over the years people like Ian Duncan Smith being very, very vocal about the challenge that the Chinese stand for us. We know about this super embassy in the United Kingdom in London that is causing many feathers to be ruffled. What's your take on this?
Well, I've long worked with Ian Duncan Smith and Tom Tugendhat on China, and they're obviously right that China's espionage is a big deal. I think what people forget is that espionage is actually very banal. It's about befriending people. It's about finding out minor details about them to make it easier to cultivate them as sources. It's really very banal and everyday, the normal business of espionage. And people should be more aware to it. I mean, what do members of Parliament think that foreign intelligence services are for, if not to get alongside politicians and influence what they do and say? So we've got to, again, stop being childish about this. Beijing is a great power. There's no point denying it. The sheer scale of Chinese might is now absolutely immense, and MI5 need to be properly resourced and equipped to make sure that they're able to conduct appropriate counter espionage operations. But that all sounds very grand. In the end, MPs and their staff should just be aware that they are targets. I've published a Substack on 5 things they can do, but it begins with just recognising you're a target. Espionage is very banal. Be very aware that lovely people from foreign countries who are being kind to you and helpful probably want more than just to support you in your work with this helpful briefing. Think they should be just a little bit more alive to the reality that they're in important roles, and counter-espionage is actually quite easy if you see them coming.
But you say that, and I'm faced with a video that has most MPs in Portcullis House yesterday afternoon whilst the world burns, and you make very good comments about the Chinese spy scandal. You're laughing. It's infuriating so many people this morning having a dance-off for Strictly Come Dancing. Talk about being bleeding. You can't be aware of espionage if you can't even understand the optics of how that looks. Can I ask you a question as an ex-MP? Do you know what a lot of criticism is, right, Steve? Is that the level and the quality of MPs is just ridiculous. Now, we've had this argument before. I think you and I have talked about this. And some people hate my opinion. I would have less MPs, I would pay them more money to get more quality, because I just don't believe, whether it's espionage or Strictly Come Dancing or serving constituents or towing the party, I don't know. It just doesn't ever seem to be the place with the quality that perhaps it was in the old days.
Well, I think having fewer MPs with higher pay and greater staff isn't a bad idea at all. In fact, David Cameron and George Osborne tried to reduce the number of MPs by 10%. But I have to tell your listeners that there's not like a dial you can turn where if you increase the salary, you get better people. It takes decades to replace MPs. Once they get elected for a 5-year term and their associations keep choosing them as the candidate, they can be there for a generation. I'm afraid in a democracy, the electors get the government they deserve. And if you want rid of these fools, I'm afraid you have to join the political party of your choice, preferably the one that returns an MP in your area, and turn up to the selection meeting and tell them it's not good enough and vote against them to remove them. And unless people join political parties, and they are our political parties, but unless electorates reinvigorate our political parties, we'll continue to have rubbish MPs. And that's the only solution, I'm afraid. It won't happen by magic. It's not like the production of mobile phones or groceries. In a democracy, we get the MPs we deserve. And this is partly why I laugh, is because I've got 14 years of knowing how the absurdities we see arise. But I'm sorry, folks, in the end, poor quality MPs is all of our fault because we don't join parties and we don't go and remove them and demand someone better.
Couldn't agree more. Can I ask you the obvious question? When you see the pictures there on screen of Strictly Come Dancing in Portcullis House, when you see that we're in the grip of the worst Prime Minister since records began, when the world is on a precipice, do you miss it?
No, not really. There were many things which made it an honour and a privilege to do, but carrying the concerns of 75,000 electors and, having to constantly guard what you say to check that you'll get re-elected. Whereas, of course, sitting here with you today, I can just tell you, as I always did, to be honest.
That's true.
I tell you what I really believe is true. But now when I speak the truth, I can speak the truth without worrying about what my electors will think about it. And that is very liberating. So, I don't really miss it, no.
So you won't come back and do it again?
I have no plans to come back, no. It would take something really extraordinary for me to go back. After everything I've done, there's no need for me to return and be a backbencher. Someone else can do that. But, someone will have to sort out our relationship with the EU after Keir Starmer has put us in a worse position than EU membership. And if I had a chance to do that, well, of course, I'd go and do it. But I don't think that's very likely. I think it's more likely that David Frost will end up being Reform's Foreign Secretary and he will do it. So, it's not likely.
Sorry, that sounded like a bit of an exclusive. David Frost will end up as Reform's Foreign Secretary. Oh, Lord Frost.
Just a little bird suggested to me that might happen.
Is that an exclusive?
I haven't got authoritative information, Jeremy, no. But
you're talking to the man who is an independent media person, trains all of, and I've been very open about this, trains all of Reform's would-be MPs, councillors and mayoral candidates. That's news to me. I'll ask you the question I was going to anyway. Aren't you ideologically better suited if you defected to Reform, Steve?
No, because I'm a classical liberal to libertarian. And what's happening at the moment is there's a major realignment of politics so that nationalism is the main axis and Reform is the beneficiary of that. Now, I don't want to be boring, but I think that nationalism and interventionism in the economy go hand in hand and lead to exactly the kind of difficulties which the world is suffering from, not the Iran war, that's separate, but the kind of trade wars that we've been having. And I just want no part of any of that. And on top of that, I don't want to return to Parliament. So, ideologically, I'm a classical liberal to libertarian. And that, in other words, I think that government should do radically less. And I'm afraid that means I am constantly without a party, and I'm sticking with the Conservatives because I think for all its flaws, it is the party most likely to deliver the kind of government that I want.
It's not going to happen next time, though. The British public won't forgive the Tories that quickly. Steve, you're a ledge. I've got to go, but listen, we love having you on, and I love the fact that you can come here and be free and speak common sense. Steve will be back on the show very soon. Former Conservative Government Minister Steve Baker, 7:20. You're waking up to, well, just so much about what's happening in the Middle East. Allies have rounded on weak Starmer. Trump overnight calling him a loser with no future and no friends. Apparently, we learned today that Ed Miliband led the cabinet revolt. Of course, he did, to military action. And whether you agree that we should have got in early or not, the fact is we're in it now and we're showing ourselves up. I mean, HMS dragging your feet. Scrambled eventually by Starmer to head to Cyprus to defend our people. It's going to be another week before it leaves. That's really impressive. A flight that was supposed to take off from Oman overnight. British Airways flight, I think, I don't know. That couldn't take off. People weren't allowed to take off because apparently there was a technical problem. And while all of this is going on, ladies and gentlemen, footage that I will keep playing of MPs yesterday afternoon in Portcullis House having a Strictly Come Dancing dance-off whilst the world is in peril. Christine, good morning.
Morning, Jez. Christine from Weymouth. And we're paying that lot, and they've just got a 5% pay rise. It makes me sick.
Couldn't agree more. 7:22 will say a very good morning to the Conservative MP for the Weald of Kent. Katie Lamb, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
I'm all right. Please say no. Tell me you didn't dance in Portcullis House yesterday afternoon.
I did not.
Can I have your response to that? Because let me tell you about my viewers and listeners, right? And I'm absolutely with the headline on the Daily Telegraph. Whilst the world burns, MPs dance. It's an unbelievably poor look, isn't it, Katie?
It's not something that I would choose to do with my time when I'm in Parliament.
That was really, really controlled of you. Thank you for your honesty. I want to take you... I wanted to get you on today because you did something yesterday which I'm actually say this, I'm so proud. I have Maggie Oliver on yesterday. I have feted Maggie Oliver and the amazing work she's done about these rape gang inquiries and the lack of movement from a government. And yesterday you quizzed Starmer, quite rightly as well. We've got the clip on why he is running scared. Let's just play this for everybody.
The government's proposed terms of reference for the inquiry into rape and grooming gangs are fatally flawed, as victims and survivors have pointed out. They won't address the role that race and religion played in motivating these crimes. They won't lead to prosecutions for those involved in the cover-up. And they won't even investigate all cases, only a select few. The consultation on these terms ends this Friday. If enough people call for changes, including through groomingangjustice.uk, will the Prime Minister please assure us that the final terms of reference will reflect these concerns?
Baroness Longfield is now beginning the work of the inquiry, with victims and survivors at the heart of the process. Under this government, convictions that are at the highest level ever. We're introducing mandatory reporting on child sexual abuse and putting a legal duty on police to collect ethnicity data. But forgive me if I don't take suggestions from the honourable member who said people legally and settled here should go home to ensure that the UK is culturally coherent. That is a grotesque way to talk about our friends and neighbours, and I rather suspect that her next question will come from her sitting up there.
Unbelievable. I have to keep really calm. Katie, can you respond to how the Prime Minister responded to you? Because I struggle, as do my listeners and viewers, to how there's almost, it seems, the entire establishment, not just this Prime Minister, but past Prime Ministers, have pretended to hide this. You end up thinking, if you're a sane person, there has to be an institutional cover-up.
Well, there is a broad institutional cover-up. We know that for a fact. But the way that the Prime Minister responded yesterday, I thought was, frankly, pathetic. I asked him a genuine question about what is perhaps the most important crime or series of crimes that have been committed in our country in the 20th and 21st century. And rather than answer it, which is his job, he instead decided to attack me and play partisan politics. I think it just shows that he doesn't understand how important this is and that he's not taking it seriously.
Many people, if we just move slightly, just for 10 seconds to what's going on in the world, say that he is hampered personally by making any decision. Kemi Badenoch stood up yesterday and said he's putting personal job security before national security. He was seen on the evening of the decision about supporting America or not, talking to some Muslim people at the end of Ramadan. That's not, but he made a big thing about, I'm proud I wasn't part of it. He attacked you yesterday. I've seen that clip and I've seen numerous clips, and I've heard all these commentators who say, how can you say that all the rapes and all this, it's all men and they come from Pakistan or they come in illegally? Well, the fact of the matter is that 87%, I think, of the crimes in Rochdale were carried out by British Pakistanis. That is not a racist thing to say. And there is no doubt that if you let unvetted young men into this country who do not have the same views about women, misogynistic views to many in a modern world, you are going to have problems. But this is historical. And this is not just at Starmer. This goes back way. And I said to Maggie yesterday, I find it almost the biggest stain, Katie, on what we are as a country, that we can't do right by these poor kids.
It is the biggest stain on our country. Again, I think in the 20th and 21st centuries, I think it's the biggest failing of the British state maybe ever. It's the biggest cover-up in this country perhaps ever. And the way that Starmer reacted to it, all he's doing to Kemi Badenoch's point about job security and national security, all he's doing in the room is trying to impress his other Labour MPs, not reassure people out in the country that he has understood this problem and how important it is to get to the bottom of it and to tell people the truth.
Why do you think successive governments have pushed this under the carpet? I don't know if you know or you heard this, but I remember about 3 years ago interviewing a senior policeman from the Rochdale area, and he said, and this is not a racist comment, it's true, he said, well, we had to tread carefully over an 8-year period because we didn't want to cause disruption and upset certain parts of the community. And I remember coming on air and saying what I genuinely feel, which is, I don't care the colour of your skin. I couldn't give a damn where you've come from. I don't want men in this country who think it's okay to abuse kids and get away with it.
Well, we know for a fact that a lot of these crimes were covered up because of the race and religion of the perpetrators. There are clear documents. As far back as 2010, West Midlands Police knew that there were men that were hanging outside schools, that were hanging outside children's homes, rounding up girls, effectively kidnapping them so that they would then torture and rape them. And West Midlands Police knew about this, and they explicitly decided to do nothing because all of the men were Pakistani Muslim and all of the girls, all of the victims, were white. And they thought that this would inflame community tensions. But if you have committed a crime, if you commit the very worst crimes that people can commit against children, it shouldn't matter who you are. You belong in prison. And all of the people who've covered this up also belong in prison, which is one of the main problems with the inquiry, is it will not lead to prosecutions for people who've covered this up. Remember, not a single person has ever even been arrested for covering up these crimes.
Why? I mean, that's the establishment. Here's a direct question for you. Many of the criticisms, as I said already, aimed at Starmer recently, are that he's pandering to a Muslim base. Do you think that's the case with this as well?
I think it is very difficult for the Labour Party to get to the bottom of this for various electoral reasons. It's complicated because it's not, and it shouldn't be, about party politics. And the way that the Prime Minister likes to play politics with this, I think, is absolutely appalling. The fundamental facts are that appalling things happen to these children and that they deserve justice and that we deserve to know what was done in our name. But there is a reality that it is particularly difficult, I think, for the Labour Party to get to the bottom of this.
But the problem that I have with that is if you are accused of putting party before country, whether it's with your response to what's happening in Iran or to the rape gangs inquiry, you're not doing the first thing that you're supposed to do as a government, which is to protect your own people. And personally, as a 60-year-old, an old man now, I think it's abhorrent. And you said to me something that just like that, I've heard it before and it always makes me, you said it won't lead to any convictions. Well, it damn well should lead to convictions. And the fear that I have is, and I'm sure you share this, Katie, this probably goes so high that we are talking about an institutional cover-up. I remember watching Jess Phillips literally 40 minutes before Parliament went into recess last Easter saying, we're not having an national inquiry, we're having local ones. Goodbye, have a nice Easter. And I remember thinking, you are, you know, for a woman who talks about women's safety, what have you just done to female girls whose lives will be blighted forever? Appalling.
And even that, I'm sorry to say, was a lie. Have we ever heard anything again about those 5 local inquiries? No. The only one where the location was identified was Oldham. That hasn't progressed at all. The other 4 are still completely hypothetical.
Where do we go from here? You say you've written a fantastic article in The Sun today saying the government is trying to cover this up and this is what you should do to stop that. Just say that for me on air because a lot of people won't get to the newspaper today.
The consultation for these terms of reference for the inquiry into rape and grooming gangs is open until tomorrow, until the 6th of March. Any member of the public can write in and say, I'm not happy with these terms. This isn't good enough. You have to look at the role that race and religion played in motivating these crimes. It has to lead to prosecutions for people involved in the cover-up. It has to investigate every case. The way that the terms are written now, it won't even go everywhere. It will just look at a select few places. If you go to groomingangjustice.uk, which is a site that we've set up, you just put in your name, your basic details, and we will, for you, submit a response to the consultation saying that. It explains on the website all of the things that we will say.
Groomingangcrisis.uk, Katie, right?
Groomingangjustice.uk.
Oh, sorry, groomingangjustice.uk. Bear that in mind, peeps, because you should all do this today. Groomingangjustice.uk.
Yeah, it will just take 2 seconds and it is an opportunity actually to tell the government directly at a time when they legally have to listen to you what you think about this. It is not good enough.
Is this life's work for you?
I think it is one of the most important things that I could be doing with my time in the role that I have. This is the biggest sex crime, the biggest hate crime, and the biggest cover-up in our country.
Total support from this station and from this show forever, and we will say that throughout the morning. Go to the Sun newspaper to read what Katie has to say, or go to groomingangjustice.uk, peeps. Those kids whose lives were blighted, whatever the colour of the skin of the perpetrator, that's not what this is about. This is about an institutionalised cover-up which has destroyed and has destroyed many, many kids' lives. Katie Lamb, thank you so much, and thank you, actually, for the work that you're doing. 7:33, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Jeremy Kyle on Breakfast. Morning, Scotty.
Morning, Jezza. Scott from Portsmouth. Just off to lay some gas mains while I still can under Millipede and his net zero government. About Starmer. So he can't protect our bases, he can't protect our troops, he can't protect our waters because he's got no navy to deploy. The only thing he can protect is his voter base. Is this not dereliction of duty? The man brings shame on the UK. Get him out.
Good morning to you. This is Toward the Home of Common Sense with me, Julia Hartley-Brewer. Just breaking news in the last couple of moments. Extraordinary news. Not just that the police have arrived at the Sandringham estate where Prince Andrew, as was now Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, is currently living since being thrown out of the Windsor estate. The police have arrested Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It's an extraordinary revelation. And certainly what's been contained in the Epstein files as released in the last few weeks. It's his 66th birthday today. What a birthday present that is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 25 to 8 in a minute. The president of the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs. You would talk as home of common sense. It's the home of the alarm clock Brits. Keep your calls coming 0344 419 1000. Don't forget, great work from Katie Lamb in the Sun today, like Maggie Oliver, doing her bit for all those kids, those young girls who are abused by rape gangs. groominggangsjustice.co.uk. groominggangsjustice.uk. Literally, go to your computer, click on it. The fact that you acknowledge that puts pressure on the government. We're all going to do it. It's an absolute disgrace. It's a stain. And Katie is right. It is an institutional cover-up. Good morning to Phil in Coventry. Jez, all you need to know about Ayatollah Starmer, brilliant, is watching him getting his arm stroked by a Palestinian at an event in Westminster Hall. Good morning to Margaret. Margaret in Birmingham. All right, love. She says, have you got Nigel Evans on today? I'd love to hear his opinion on the dance-off yesterday. Yeah, he's on in 20 minutes. Dan's in Kent. Morning, JK. Did Trump pull a masterstroke, do you think, in removing Maduro and taking control of Venezuela's oil, knowing an attack on Iran would lead to an oil crisis? You're certainly not implying that Trump knows what he's doing. Margaret's in Norfolk. Why didn't we have any ships in the Med anyway? We knew the Americans were building up military power there. Well, Margaret in Norfolk, if you weren't listening yesterday, Ian Duncan Smith said, and I quote, "That is because it saves the government money if your vessels are not on operational duty and are stuck in a port." What we do know about HMS Dragging Your Feet is it is still in Portsmouth. It hasn't left. That is in no way a criticism of the ship or the amazing sailors, men and women who are in the Royal Navy. It is another example of the ponderous, pathetic stature our Prime Minister has. Jez, perhaps the MPs and hapless Speaker were doing a war dance, as Michael This, ladies and gentlemen, if you're waking up, is the story on the front of the Telegraph. Whilst the world burns, MPs took part yesterday in a Strictly Come Dancing gig at Portcullis House. JK, says Cliff, I would imagine Starmer... I could imagine Starmer, when he's fired, making the announcements on the railway tannoy system. We apologise for the late arrival of HMS Dragging Your Feet, but this is unnecessary. Also, just bear in mind, if you are just hearing this story, the first flight that was supposed to leave Oman last night to bring the Brits home, guess what? British Airways plane, technical problem, didn't take off. This country is on its backside. Wayne, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. It's Wayne from Erdington in Birmingham, mate. Another embarrassment for Britain. Still trying to jumpstart a ship. I don't know, mate. We're looking a fool on the world stage. Maybe we should have sent Captain Pugwash over. He'd have got there quicker than this heap of junk. Keep up the good work, my man.
Good man, 0344 499 1000. Let's cross now. Delighted to have my next guest, Dr. Dan Diker, as the president of the Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs, the JCFA. Dan, a very good morning to you.
Good morning to you, Jeremy. A pleasure to be on the program and to see the type of moral clarity that Member of Parliament Katie Lamb has expressed. Being an Anglophile many times a year in the UK and London, it's really a pleasure to see common sense on the TV.
Thank you, my friend. I've been raging for days. I don't really know where to start. In fact, I do know where to start. We did this on Monday, and I put this out there, and people responded. I have been an absolutely staunch supporter of Israelis and Jewish people since I started. I have Jewish friends, and I have said for as long as I can remember that I find any form of racism abhorrent, but I fail to understand in the world we live in at the age that I am now, 60, how anti-Semitism isn't given the same abhorrence as any other racism. It's a disgusting thing. And the irony for me is that the Muslim community, and I'm talking about extremist Muslims, Islam, whatever you want to call it. They make no secret of the fact that to them, the Jewish population, the Israeli population, whatever you want to say, is not something that they favour. How ironic, Dan, that on Saturday and Sunday, overnight, with America, it was Israel who potentially freed millions of Muslims from the oppression of a rule of a man who, for terrorism, that was his second hobby. And I think that's a very good way to start with you, my friend.
I think it is too, Jeremy. Very well said. And let me express my deep appreciation from the middle of Jerusalem for your sympathy and common sense regarding the scourge of Jew hatred and the hatred of the Jewish state. It was, frankly, it was no less than Winston Churchill, one of the greatest prime ministers in the history of the free world, who recognized the Jewish people's right to return to Israel, their 3,600-year ancient homeland, and he worked very much to strengthen, as the great British historian Andrew Roberts has written again and again and again, his strong relationship with the Jewish community. What we are witnessing today, Jeremy, is an unprecedented, horrific rise in Jew hatred. I think people like dead Jews, and they like Jews that are unable to defend themselves. And I think for those people, unfortunately, Israel, as the eternal home of the nations, the eternal home of the Jewish people, that, by the way, we have 2 million Muslims here that live in freedom, that have exactly the same rights as every Jewish Israeli. And we are now faced with the most historic moment in the last 100 years since the Sykes-Picot Agreement divided up the Middle East. And that is that we all face what hopefully will be the finest hour, as Prime Minister Churchill had said when he was fighting the Nazis in the streets, in the hills, in the cities. We are fighting the Nazi regime of our time. And Israel has been on the target list since 1979, as has the United States. And by the way, hundreds of Brits have lost their lives to the same Iranian regime. It just seems to me that many Brits are unaware of it.
Well, let me tell you what Britain isn't unaware of, if this shows anything to go by, which gains traction more and more so each and every day. And there's an argument here amongst certain, you know, internationally led, law-led lawyers that we shouldn't have been there initially. I happen to believe differently. But what I will absolutely want to ask you is, the Gulf states this morning are labelling our Prime Minister as weak, which I absolutely agree. His response to sending any ships to Cyprus yesterday is beyond embarrassment. Trump continues to lay into him. Yesterday he said it's not necessarily Churchill I'm dealing with. Today's calling him a loser with no future and no friends. How disappointed has Israel been by United Kingdom's response, my friend?
Well, I have to be honest, because I am a big fan of the United Kingdom. There is a strong sense of overall disappointment with Europe, but beyond that, the United Kingdom for Israel plays a very important role for Europe, because we look at the United Kingdom as a model, a strategic and moral model for the rest of Europe. And right now there is a sense of disappointment because of the opposition that Prime Minister Starmer has expressed. The difficulties he's had allowing the United States to use the Diego Garcia Island in the Indian Ocean, his difficulty with immediate response to the Iranian regime attack on British sovereignty in Cyprus.
Listen, and I'll tell you, and I go further than that. I mean, I keep, you know, meeting this brick wall of international law, which I personally think is a movable feast that people use. And I'm desperate to look in somebody like Starmer's face, Dan, and say, international law did not apply to the Ayatollah Khomeini when he financed Hezbollah, the Houthis, Hamas, ISIS to blow up English kids at the Manchester Arena bombing. I'd love to know what these people do. Listen, lots of people listening to this will say we shouldn't have gone in. For me, as I say, I think differently, but I just personally... I'm so embarrassed by the ineptitude of our Prime Minister, by this dragging his feet. And the truth is, you might know this, you might not. He is being accused quite rightly in the United Kingdom of playing politics. He's interested more in shoring up his supporters than he is doing right by the country. And for me, that's the real crux here. A leader sometimes makes decisions that are unpopular even with his own voter base, but he does it because he's the leader of this country. And that's where I think Keir Starmer fails massively.
Well, I think that's a very important observation, Jeremy, and I think that the example rests with President Trump. Look, the American people, according to the most recent polls, are uncertain and skeptical at the American leadership in this campaign. And I can tell you, as an American and as an Israeli, that this is the potentially the finest hour for the United States and the Western Alliance. This is the Nazi regime of our era. This is a regime that has attempted to assassinate more than 20 to 22 Brits in the last 2.5 years alone. This is a regime that, that has no qualms about mass murdering up to 50,000 innocent Iranians. And the question is, where is the free world? Where are the human rights people? Where is the liberal international order? Well, I'll tell you where they are. They are obsessed with what's called the Palestinian issue. And basically, because it is Israel and the United States that are leading this crusade to save the West, frankly. It's not about Israel and the Jews, for goodness sakes. This is about a regime, as you and I know, that if they were to acquire nuclear weapons, and believe me, with all this nonsense talk about international law, this regime was within weeks in 2025 of obtaining and putting together 11 nuclear devices. And I can promise you that those devices would have been passed to the same terrorists that murdered Brits on 7/7, if we remember that.
Yeah.
This is very, very important to emphasize the Iranian regime's acute threat and capability to destroy the West. This is what they've been saying since 1979. People have not been paying attention. The United States public has been paying less attention, and the British public as well. And I think that it's up to our leaders to engage in moral and strategic clarity and understand that what is happening today is no less a move than saving Western civilization, Judeo-Christian values, as it is from this murderous regime that will use nuclear weapons if they were able to attain them.
I couldn't put it any better myself. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Please, Dan Dyker, President, Jerusalem Centre for Security and Foreign Affairs, come on whenever, because I think it's really, really important to put both sides of the coin. We sit here hamstrung in the United Kingdom by bloody international. See the passion in that guy's voice? He talks about these mad mullahs. I've said it every single day, right? They have sponsored every terrorist group. Our own defence secretary on Monday said there were 20 terror plots to kill Brits on the streets of Britain foiled by, you know, let's have it out there, terrorist groups paid for by the man who was taken out. That's the point. And I'll go back to what he said. There are people in America who disagree with those initial strikes. There are people in England who do. But we're talking about a regime that doesn't give a toss about international law. And I've got a Prime Minister who won't fart unless he goes to court to work out whether he should or he shouldn't. Mark, good morning.
Morning, Jezza. Mark from Chingford here. Going to keep it short and sweet. Starmer, Khan, Labour, they all need to go. They're all completely useless. They're not there for the British public, and I think this country has totally had it. Now we need change as quick as we can. Basically, I don't know if Farage will be the man. I really don't know, but I'm just going to leave it at that. Have a good day.
I wanted to come back and give you some good news. Great. This was Keir Starmer a few weeks ago talking about how excited he was that energy bills have come down. Have a listen, have a watch. That's not right. We can't play it. We can't play it. Technical issues. Basically, Starmer said, it's very interesting. Energy bills have gone down. Everything's great. Breaking news. Can you play that breaking news flash at all? Can you do that? Yeah, breaking news, ladies and gentlemen. 10 to 8 on Thursday, the 5th of March. Energy bills are set to rise by 10% by July due to the Iran war. This is Talk Breakfast again.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I was trying to swallow a biscuit. 9 minutes to 8. We're live across the United Kingdom. By popular demand, my next guest is the only guest that we should have got on. We say a very good morning to the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. We haven't got long. Nigel Evans, hello.
Good morning, how are you?
Well,
I'm at Heathrow.
We've had people texting. Where are you?
Heathrow.
Oh, for crap. Really? Well, you're not going anywhere, are you? Where are you going?
Am I going to Helsinki?
Right, listen.
Yeah.
We've had people saying, Nigel's the man. We want his view. I don't want to over-egg this. I'll be honest. Most of the allies in the Middle East have called Starmer useless. Donald Trump says he's a loser with no friends. Ed Miliband turned out to be the one who said, we can't support the Americans. Whatever our take on that, whether you're appalled like I am that we've got one bleeding ship and it's stuck in Portsmouth, right? Yesterday, as the world burnt, and I am absolutely with the Telegraph, as the world burns, from Portcullis House, videos emerge of a whole bunch of MPs, Nige, on a Wednesday afternoon, taking part in a Strictly Come... Look at them. Honestly, if you've got YouTube, headed by Hannah Spencer in her green suit. Nige, seriously, how the bloody hell are we supposed, as British citizens, in the situation we're in, to take politicians seriously, man?
Well, nobody's taken politicians seriously for a long time. It's not just been the old Strictly taking place in Parliament yesterday. I do feel sorry for Lindsay in the regard that this must have been in the diary for several weeks. You don't get Angela Rippon over to Parliament, and there's Lindsay and Angela on your screens at short notice. And it was all to do with mental health and keeping fit. That's what it was all about. And so when it got put in Lindsay's diary, it was a great idea. And then, of course, what's happened since Saturday and the war in Iran, because that's what it is, then I suspect Lindsay is now, with hindsight, thinking, I should have shelved it.
But that's what I'm talking about. That's what's frustrating so many people contacting this show, Nigel, because they're going, where are the bloody brain cells? Where are the priorities, man?
Well, all I hope now is that, because there'll be a ton of things in Lindsay's diary. I know it's Commonwealth Day on Monday. I know they've got the flag ceremony there. And there'll be a ton of things in his diary. If I was him, I'd be going through it with a fine-tooth comb and taking out anything that really doesn't look as if it's political.
We've got 3 minutes. First of all, Ian Duncan Smith yesterday said that, and so did Michael Gove, that Keir Starmer, in putting party politics in front of national self-interest, is almost like a traitor. He's a threat to national security.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, in the past, Jeremy, I've always thought that Keir Starmer was useless. And I have. His flip-flops are awful. He's been the worst Prime Minister in my living memory. He started bad and has got worse. I now think it's gone beyond that. And you've heard what Donald Trump has said. And now you've got Cyprus coming in, Bahrain, UAE. All these countries are saying that they feel let down. Trump says that he's no Churchill. He's not even a Chamberlain. Let's be fair. I now think he's not just useless. I now believe he is dangerous. He is a dangerous Prime Minister. If Trump is disappointed, can he just imagine how we feel? I am ashamed that we have Keir Starmer as our Prime Minister. We have let down our allies. My goodness me. When this kicked off, he picked the phone up to his lawyer mate, Harmer, instead of which he should have picked up the phone to Trump and said, what do you want us to do? If you've got Canada coming in and saying this is great, you've got Australia coming in and giving support. These are Commonwealth countries, Commonwealth allies. They didn't reach for the phone for their lawyers, and that's what we should have done. We should have literally got on with Trump. And for goodness sake, our bases are the ones that are being attacked in Cyprus and Bahrain. And as you quite rightly say, we at one stage, Britannia ruled the waves. Now we rule the dockyards because that's where all our ships are.
It's embarrassing, and I'm with you. We've only got a minute. I don't think I've ever felt more embarrassed, and I don't care. Listen, you can have the opinion, other people, that we shouldn't have gone in initially. It's this, I mean, you just end up looking and you think we're humiliated. You dither. Even the plane that was sent to the Oman to evacuate Brits doesn't work. I don't ever believe in my lifetime, Nigel, that I would feel like our country was such a laughing stock. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, of course. You're spending $55 billion on defence and over $400 billion a year on Benefit Britain. That is the real problem. And we need to rein back our spending on welfare and put it into defence.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, off to Helsinki on the book tour or something we shouldn't ask you about?
No, the book, I promise you, I am going to get back to it, but I'm still on chapter 25, Jeremy.
Jesus, man. Listen, it's always a pleasure. You were called for this morning, and we'll keep calling because we love having you on. Our former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, the legend that is Nigel Evans. We're kicking off the next hour with Sarah Vine, author and columnist of the Daily Mail. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. It's Thursday, the 5th of March, and the news at 8 is next on...
current affairs, international news, letting criminals off while sending... Oi! Oi! You shut up. I'm trying to record something.
Stand by for 3 powerhouse hours of breaking news, challenging views. I don't give a flying damn about international law. I think people will viscerally reject this.
On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defence of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes, is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
My friends, just gone 8 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. It is Thursday, the 5th of March, and you're waking up to the ongoing situation in Iran and the Middle East, of course, overnight. You heard it in the news. Allies, here's a surprise. Bahrain, the UAE, Cyprus have joined forces to criticise Keir Starmer's pathetic response to British troops being attacked with a drone missile in Cyprus. For those of you who've been following my HMS Dragging Your Feet tracker, the only ship that we could send still is in Portsmouth. It's not operational yet. Everybody else has got there, but we're, excuse me, holding back. We'll get there eventually. It'll probably all be over, but I'm sure we'll get there. Overnight, Donald Trump has taken aim again at Starmer. Starmer doesn't seem to care. Fair play, that's his opinion. He's not bothered about the special relationship. What is it Trump said? He's a loser. He's got no future. He's got no friends. It doesn't even sound like Trump, but I'm giving it a go. On top of that, we also learn that it was Red Ed Miliband who led the cabinet revolt. International international law says we can't do anything. Well, let me tell you this, Ed Miliband. International law, look in the eyes of the people who have been killed, the kids in Manchester, look in the eyes of their parents and talk about international law, you absolute numpty. 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. Overnight, you might have heard that the flight arranged by the UK government to take off from Oman with Bring the Brits Home, it didn't take off. We heard exclusively from Isabel Oakeshott this morning, the plane had technical difficulties. So the planes don't fly and the boats don't, whatever they do, float. And whilst all of this is going on, I'm completely with the Daily Telegraph. This is an absolute fact. We just had Nigel Evans on confirming it. As the world burns, a bunch of ridiculous MPs yesterday, if you're watching on YouTube, went to Portcullis House and took part in a Strictly Come Dancing mental health afternoon. Now, I'm sure that's very impressive, but right now, the optics of these people doing that whilst this country is on his backside is just too much for many to bear. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Jezza. Now, Labour and Tories were an absolute disgrace of parties. I mean, unfortunately, I've just watched this Prime Minister's questions. I don't know why I bother, because he never answers a sodding question. They are both cheeks of the same eye. They stand there and they laugh. They are dealing with people's lives and they stand there and they laugh. Well, I tell you what, you won't find it funny when all this situation starts affecting you and your families. This is quite unbelievable, Jezza. They muck everything up and they go off into the sunset on their big fat pensions while we have to pick up the pieces again. Starmer, you're an absolute Oh, it makes my blood boil. Thank you very much for taking my voice note, Jeremy.
I'm not going to do my mention for Ollie. It's World Book Day at the moment. I'll just leave that because James isn't very happy. And I'll read you a couple of things. Where can we get a list of those MPs that went to Portcullis House for Strictly Come Cowards? Name and shame them. They're probably laughing and joking about their pay rise whilst our sons and daughters are under threat in foreign lands, says somebody from Worthing. Sorry, I deleted it. Joe from Norfolk. Great show. Shameful MPs dancing at Westminster when they had just been awarded an above-inflation pay rise due to increased workload. Doesn't seem to be overworked if you can take time to prat around. David Griffiths. I'm getting bored with international law and armchair strategists. Involvement against Iran boils down to one simple issue. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do absolutely bugger all, and that just about sums up Keir Starmer. It's all going on this morning, and I've just got to do this before I speak to the wonderful, wonderful Sarah Vine and her pussycat. It always walks in front of the camera. I'm going to take you back a couple of weeks when Keir Starmer had a bit of a victory. He said, and I quote, "I'm very, very excited." This is how he said it.
The news this morning, Mr. Speaker, 7 a.m, energy bills coming down by £117. For millions of families and young people struggling. That's guaranteed money off bills in April, driven by the action that this Labour government has taken. We promised to cut the cost of living. We are cutting the cost of living.
Now, far be it from me to give the impression that he never speaks the truth, but I just want you, before I give you this breaking news, to imagine that our ships can't sail and our planes can't fly and our Prime Minister is an absolute liar. Because breaking news this morning, my friends, due to the apparent Iran war that we're not really involved in, energy bills are set to increase by 10% in July. So there you are. Happy bleeding Thursday. A very good morning to author and columnist for The Mail. I love her, Sarah Vine. How are you? I give up. I'm giving up. I'm going to live in another country. It's too much for me.
Good morning. Good morning. My pussy has wandered off this morning. I don't know what's happened to her.
Well, that's an opening line, Mrs. Slocum. I don't know what else to say. Nobody who's not our... Well, you're much younger than me. Nobody will understand that. Mrs. Slocum's pussy. Sarah, I live in this... I actually... yesterday nearly self-combusted on air.
You seem to be steaming this morning, I have to say.
Well, whether one agrees with the initial foray into Iran, and there are plenty of people who don't, the actions of this government, your ex-husband, Ian Duncan Smith as well, other people yesterday on this show said that he is almost traitor-like to put personal political ambition in front of national security. Would you agree with that?
I would say I do agree with that. And I also think that, you know, that line about all it takes for evil to flourish is for good people to do nothing is really pertinent. I think that was your previous caller, wasn't it? I mean, it's true. Of course, nobody wants to go to war. Of course, nobody wants to use military action. It's the last thing anybody wants to do. But when you look at a regime like Iran and you look at what it's doing to its own people, but also the way that it's funding terrorism across the region and causing misery for thousands of other people in that region and exporting terrorism to places like the UK and America, at a certain point you have to say, I'm sorry guys, enough is enough. You can't do this anymore. We have to put a stop to it. And that is a moral stance that you're taking there. You're basically making a moral judgment about the behavior of a rogue state. And instead of which, the Prime Minister is mithering on about international law and, you know, the way that he always hides behind sort of legalese, I think, is very, I don't know, I find it really distasteful because, you know, the law has its uses, but it is not a refuge for indecision.
I see it as a movable feast that they, I have to say this, I'm sure that, you know, he and Herma are, you know, are glued to it. But to me, it's a movable feast that's used to excuse an inability to make a decision. Leadership is, and I think you'd agree with this, and you know more than me, leadership is about making decisions that people don't like. To me, he's totally about focus groups and totally about pandering to everybody.
Exactly. Leadership is about taking really, really tough decisions that nobody wants to make. It's not about having a nice house at Chequers or motorcycle outriders or getting to dance to Strictly Come Dancing in the or whatever that they were doing the other day. It's not about that. It's about making not just difficult decisions, impossible decisions. Do you know what I mean? I remember when Michael was in government, and there's a thing that when the Prime Minister is away and when the Deputy Prime Minister is away, there has to be somebody who is in charge in case there is a serious issue. So, you know, if an aeroplane is suddenly being flown into St. Paul's or whatever, you have to make the decision, and you have to go off and you have to do training. And the question they ask you is, you know, if this situation were happening and an airplane was being crashed into the city of London, would you choose to shoot it down or would you allow it to crash? And the question is, which of the two terrifying options are you going to take? What's the least bad thing that can happen here? Are you going to kill all the people on the airplane, or are you going to kill 10 times more on the ground? That is the sort of decision that you have to make when you are Prime Minister. That is what the job is. And if you don't have the balls to do it, you should be in the job.
I mean, I remember, and I don't want to open up about COVID because it drives me insane, but I remember saying something about Boris Johnson, and all of that has gone, and many, many mistakes, and I don't feel as I did then. But I remember thinking at the time, Sarah, imagine coveting a job for all of your life, and you're there, and you're sat in Downing Street, and you've got it, and a bloke comes in, or a woman, before they jump up and down, and says, well, you basically got two choices. You can kill 250,000 people or screw the economy for 10 years, and you have to make one of those decisions. And it's exactly the same analogy as you just used.
Exactly the same thing. And that was, and I was there, I was around at that time, and I was, you know, I was part of that world, and it was an excruciating choice to have to make. It was an impossible choice. And you know, when someone is waving a piece of paper, you're saying this is the modelling, these are the people who are going to die, these are the numbers. Then you know, at the end of the day, you just make the best decision you can at that moment.
What do you make of him as a man? You've been around politicians all your life. I don't want to make. Well, actually, I do want to make it personal because I think he's an absolute. He just embarrasses me, and the whole the Cypriot boat thing. We're beaten by the French yesterday and the bleeding Greeks.
I mean, I think ad hominem attacks. I think actually it doesn't do Trump any credit to insult him personally. I don't think it helps the debate. I don't think it helps anyone in the Middle East. I don't think it helps Brits in Dubai or any of that stuff. Generally, I think you should try and be civilized in these situations. But I think as a person, the problem with Starmer is that he is indecisive. He's a mitherer. And he is also just pulled in too many directions. I mean, there's no doubt that he has, at the back of his mind, he has the threat to the Labour Party from the Greens, who are quite sectarian at the moment, and he's got quite a difficult voter base, so that'll be on his mind. But also, he just doesn't have the courage to say, I'm going to put my decision on the line. I'm just going to say, look, you know, this is the best I can do at this particular moment in time. This is what I think is right. I don't know what the man thinks.
I remember saying the other day, and I'll put this to you, and I never thought that I'd say this. There is not a part of what Jeremy Corbyn believed in 2019. There's no part of him that I would accept, believe or support. But begrudgingly, I thought, you stood for an election on the principles that you believed in, and you got 34% of the vote. You actually got more than Starmer did. The country didn't want you. That was the way it worked out. But I think the problem with this man is, and I keep got to go back the whole time, there's no DNA, there's no political nous, there's nothing that makes me think that he will make a decision and stand by it. I think he is totally, you said it, during the election, the tent was so wide, everybody, come on, let's destroy the... Well, the Tories had destroyed themselves. I could have won the last election by saying vote for me and Sarah. The whole thing's ludicrous. No, it was that bad. But he's been found out, and there's nothing in his gut that I go, I might disagree with you, but I really like the fact you believe in that.
But I respect your opinion.
Yes.
I respect your courage.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. He's a weak leader, and we are in very difficult times at the moment, and you need to be strong, and you need to be focused, and you need to have the courage of your convictions. I don't know that he has any convictions, to be perfectly honest, apart from the fact that he said during the election campaign that he would never use private medical care if one of his relatives was very ill, which I thought was really telling and really weird. Well, why wouldn't you? I mean,
well, of course you would. If a relative was dying and we've all had children, that's a ridiculous comment.
So that really kind of dogmatic, kind of class war, hard left, I think that is his core.
Is that the class war hard left? He's got a knighthood and lives in a £4 million house in Islington. Yeah, that's really a class war, isn't it?
Exactly. So I think that's who he is really. But I mean, I don't know. He's the thing is, we've seen, it's not just in this situation. This is a very acute situation, but it's not just in this one. It's in everything he's done since he's been in charge. What is he, on his 15th or 16th U-turn? Yeah. He cannot stick to a decision. He doesn't defend him. He doesn't defend his decisions. It's difficult when you're making complicated decisions and they are, polarizing. You have to say, okay, guys, some of you won't agree, but this is my case for what I'm doing.
Well, we heard this morning that Ed Miliband led the cabinet opposition to US military action, backed by Rachel from Accounts and Yvette Cooper. If I was the Prime Minister, I'd make the decision. That's what, and I'd stand by. But if you're more worried because of Gorton and Denton about a green wave or the left or whatever, it's the same in the Parliamentary Labour Party. He can't do anything without asking, and that, politicians, they have to have conviction, and I'm so with you, Sarah. I don't think he does. I also agree with you, Starmer. We make a joke of it. Trump sometimes lets himself down, but he's never spoken this disparagingly of not even Theresa May, who was pretty useless as well.
I think
he's angry.
I think he's very frustrated because, at the end of the day, they are our allies. That is not nothing, that is that, I mean, I can understand that Starmer might well be able to say, listen, you didn't involve me in this decision, quite honestly, and therefore, you can't expect me to support it. But that's partly to do with Starmer not having any channels, not being able to. The diplomacy is non-existent. Yeah. It's just, they had Mandelson, that went not so well, and now they don't, if you're in a very dangerous, geopolitical situation, you forge ties with your allies so that you are having the conversations that you need to have, and so that you're in the room when it happens, not outside, sort of slightly,
outside the circle of trust. I mean, we were saying yesterday about the boats thing, right? I mean, I just. Any Prime Minister would have been able, through security intelligence or just by listening to this damn show or reading your newspaper, that the Americans were building up a fleet in the Gulf. Yeah. And we end up on the international stage. I just cried yesterday. We've got one ship that'll take another 8 days before it leaves the port, and we sit here and we laugh. This was Great Britain rule the waves. Are you joking? It's humiliating. When I was on air yesterday and the Greeks arrived, I mean, Jesus, and the French had already got there. However you dress that up, I don't know. I just can't get away, Sarah, from the belief that I think this man, for whatever his ideology, isn't supportive of what I believe this country is supposed to be about.
No, I think that's a really good point, Jeremy. I think he understands Britishness. I think he's disdainful of it. Yeah, I think he finds any form of patriotism distasteful. I don't think he likes it, and it's because he is so enthralled to this sort of very kind of anti-empire, anti
apologists almost, isn't it? Apologism.
Yeah. And again, that's to do with his character. He always takes the line of least resistance. He is an appeaser. He doesn't fight for what he believes in, partly because he doesn't really know what he believes in, but also because it's just hard work, and he doesn't want to do that hard work. He can't stand up to people, and that's just weakness. And that's that's the difference between being a politician and a leader, is the ability to make your case and stand up for what you believe in. That's what leadership is. Being a politician is just doing what gets you elected. We can all do that.
Very quickly, before I let you go, Labour also plunged into more crisis today, more Chinese spying crisis. A Labour MP, Joni Reid's husband, David Taylor, a lobbyist held by Scotland Yard on suspicion of assisting a foreign intelligence service. 2 other men picked up, believed to have been advisors during the Blair time. We've heard about this before. You've been close to it. This is a real problem. Ian Duncan Smith and the people like Tom Tugendhat, who's on this hour, are absolutely right to call out the Chinese, aren't they?
Oh, definitely. Oh, absolutely. And that's terrible behaviour. I can remember years and years ago when there was that delegation to China. I think it was about 2010, and Michael had to go along. And I remember what we were told very specifically by the security services. You have to take a burner phone. Do not assume that your lavatory is not being surveilled. If they give you any gifts which you bring back to the UK, immediately hand them over to the Home Office for destruction. I mean, the Chinese are very, they don't mess around.
Wasn't this the story of Theresa May couldn't change because they thought there were secret cameras or something? Had to go
yes. That wasn't. Yes, there was that story. I mean, Michael was on an earlier trip, which was with David Cameron and George Osborne, and even then, I mean, that would have been about 2010 or 11, I think. And even then, they were sort of, And I remember we were given all this stuff. He was given all this stuff by the Chinese, just lacquered boxes and stuff like that. We all had to get rid of it because it was like, it's going to be bugged. And they're like the Russians. They have a very long-term strategy of spying, infiltration, all of that kind of stuff. That's what they do.
Needs to be called out. Can I just say, I've missed your cat this morning, but I'm liking the Ming vase behind your head. But I fear we might be. I'm only joking. Oh no, I was joking. I was because of what you said about the Chinese Ming. Don't worry. I'm sorry we didn't see your pussy. That didn't sound right, did it?
I know. I'll have to try and find her next time.
And I mean this. My wife's listening, and honestly, having you on is the biggest joy. I love speaking to you.
You're very kind. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great week. Sarah Vine, author and columnist with the Daily Mail. 8:20. We're live across the UK. This, I'm afraid, we have to take time because I've just received this from the wife. Oliver, age 6, waiting to go to school, says, "Can you tell Dad to hurry up?" I've tried to explain, says Vic, that anyway, Oliver, sorry about that. I was just doing the show. Mate, have a good day at school. Oliver, William, Robin, Kyle is dressed as Sonic the Hedgehog for school. Is it World Book Day? Do you not know that, kids? I'm going to put this on the camera. I don't make any apology. There you are. There's Oliver dressed as Sonic. That was lovely. Look at that. There he is. So have a great day, Ollie. Rissy Roo's not bothered. He looks quite scary there. Have a great day. And Mrs. K's not been well, bless her. I hope you're feeling better. Speak to you later, 8:21. Good morning, Rob in Newcastle.
Jez, not only does he refuse to help the leader of the free world, our biggest partner, the next night in the Great Hall in Westminster, he gets together the big shot Muslims from the area, brings them all together, tells them all again how proud he is of the fact that he's having nothing to do with it, pandering again to the vote because of what happened to him in Manchester, not realising that there's a ride up the road he's finished anyway. The Greens are there to do that now. But he shows that he's willing to back militant Muslim, the militant Muslim, the hard ones who don't want what we want anymore. But the best way to sort that out as an MP is to meet up live on TV and dance terribly and show the world just how bad and just how stupid they are at their jobs, while the world sits around and laughs at us. What a joke.
The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, what your gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 8:25. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Breakfast, the home of common sense, and it is the home of alarm clock Brits. My next guest in a tick, loads of you getting involved. Morning, Jez. I wonder if Nelson's flagship HMS Victory is still seaworthy. It would make a statement, perhaps, about our readiness for action. Pete says instead of dancing, the MPs should be helping their constituents, the thing that they're paid to do. Enough of this stupidity. It's done my head in. 87222 on the text. Laura, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Laura in Wiltshire. Can you believe those MPs dancing? I mean, tone deaf, staggeringly inappropriate. I just wish we could get the names of all of them and publish them so that their constituents can see what they're doing and how much they deserve that big pay rise they've just had. Try and keep breathing. Let's stay calm. Great show.
Keep calm and carry on. Now, peeps, you know me. I've always been honest from day one. I have said repeatedly that the idea behind this is to get as many different sides of the argument. We have Reform MPs, we have Conservative MPs, and until this moment, not one Labour MP was brave. Well, Carl Turner, bless him, comes on, but I'm delighted to welcome and treat it this respect. We might disagree, but he's come here. Tom Hayes, Labour MP for Bournemouth. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Big decision for you?
Not really.
But I see, I like that. Straight away, I like the fact that you're prepared to do this. So much I want to ask you. I'm going to start by asking you some breaking news. Keir Starmer stood up 3 weeks ago and said how delighted he was that energy bills would go down by £117. About 2 hours later, Twitter, said there was a confirmation that what he'd said was a lie. We've breaking news this morning. The energy bills are set to rise by 10% from July.
Well, I wish I checked my phone immediately before I came in. I think I would imagine that is down to the situation happening in the Middle East. I think this is probably very heavily down to the fact that the UK is being exposed to fossil fuel markets that are being dominated by Russia, which caused a massive peak of 11% when they illegally invaded Ukraine. And I would imagine we're going to see a significant rise in those prices because of the actions in the Middle East. But before that, bills were going up,
weren't they? Energy bills under Labour.
Before 2022.
Well, no, I mean, since you've come to do it, since the Labour Party has come to power, energy bills haven't gone down, have they?
I'm not going to ask who you voted for, but I would imagine whoever you voted for, you knew at the time that the incoming government would have a huge hole to dig our way out of. And one of those was energy bills.
I'm a bit cynical about your 22 billion black hole, if I'm honest, if we're being completely honest.
But let's put that down as stern bills. On energy bills, we all knew that inflation had hit 11%, that we had a massive journey to get it back to the 2% target. Rachel Reeves said in the spring statement this week that we are on track to hit 2% this year. She isn't a liar.
Well, if you ask working class, hard-working Brits, they will say that a lot of what, I mean, I'm not talking about breakfast clubs, a lot of what she said economically is completely and utterly wrong. You ask economists, you ask other politicians, that this woman really isn't in control as much as she gives the impression she is. Well, what's your response to that?
Well, I reject all of that. I grew up on a council estate and many of my family members are still in that working class community. I represent working class communities across Bournemouth East. They don't use the words that you use. They don't call her a liar.
What do they call her?
Like every person in this government, is a good person trying to do their best with a very difficult hand that was dealt to them by the previous government.
But you see,
I don't want to throw stones at the people who went before us.
But you see, the problem is, Tom, the problem is this government is running out. Just let me get this out to you. I understand more than you will know. I was a Tory voter who didn't vote Tory. I felt completely and utterly betrayed, as so many of my listeners did.
You just couldn't do it on the day?
No, I couldn't vote for... No, it wasn't even that. I was doing an interview, I should tell you this, I was doing an interview on a television show with a Tory MP and a Reform candidate. And the Reform candidate was talking about, you know, more secure borders and more military and more police. And I remember thinking, yeah, OK. And the Conservative MP jumped in, he'll remain anonymous. He lost his seat. And as they all did. And he said, that's far-right politics. I thought, no, it's not. That's the stuff that I voted for as I grew up. I'm 60 years of age. So that was put there. I absolutely give you that there isn't a person that I know that's stuck by the Tories. And frankly, your Prime Minister, who didn't say an awful lot, could have got elected if he'd said nothing. That's how I saw it. But you would be lying to me if you said, right, that every mistake that this government has made, the 16 U-turns, right, because I can name them all, are anything to do with the Tories. You utterly let down the pensioners. You utterly lied to the WASPy women. You let down farmers. Whatever you and I'm sure we'll disagree on that. I don't understand. Give me a chance to. Yeah, but let me give you one. I don't understand.
Well, let's go back to the economy.
Well, no, let's go back to pensioners.
No, let's go back to the economy because we started on that.
There wasn't a 22 billion black hole, was there?
If you look at the economy right now, we had an economy that was sluggish, that wasn't growing. We've got a prediction of growth.
Was the second most successful in the G7. It's now at the bottom of the pile.
We've got government borrowing down by £12 billion in December, and it's set to be on record to be the lowest since the pandemic.
So we're still not paying 12 billion a year in interest, a month in interest.
Well, let's go to that. Do you know that we are paying more on the repayment of debt interest than we do on Ministry of Defence?
Yeah.
Ministry of Justice and the Home Office. That is extraordinary when we're talking about the situation.
So why are you giving 35 billion away to give the Chagos Islands away then? Why are you doing that?
But let's come to the point that I want to make, which is when you've come into office and you inherit that situation, anyone, whoever they voted for, will know that the government needs to take action
the pensioners lied,
down,
did you, Tom?
To bring down the deficit.
OK, let's have this out. 22... Was there or was there not a 22 billion black hole?
Jeremy,
tell me the truth.
Jeremy, give me 20 seconds and I'll come to that.
Was there a black hole?
Because I can't get my points out.
All
I'm
right,
enjoying this.
All right, OK, and me.
So the problem we had is that when you inherit such an S-show, as we did, it takes a while to dig back. Any government of any party coming in would have faced that issue. But did you know that from May the 1st, renters are going to be protected from being unfairly evicted by unscrupulous landlords? Do you know that we've got the cost of living coming down? We've got government borrowing coming down.
How's the cost of living going down when my food prices are worse and energy's gone up? You're talking about...
Well, actually, the statistics in the news recently showed that food prices were coming down. That you've got interest rates coming down.
I'm sorry. Listen, I'm really happy to take both sides. But
I don't know where you get your source from, but go Google, go ChatGPT. If you've got a producer in the room, get them to do it right now.
What? You're telling me that food prices are cheaper?
There was a report in the news this year, in recent weeks, which said food prices are down.
Planet.
So if you've got your team out there, get them to Google it.
Energy you promised to bring down, that's gone up.
Energy bills are coming down £117, and the example you just gave of any possible rise, which is breaking news I didn't see because I wasn't on my phone, is down to the fact that we've got a crisis
But also, when your Prime Minister, if I can speak now, when he stood up and said that they were £117 cheaper, I know that X created, I think it's called a community note, because actually bills are £76 more expensive than when you came to power. Can I go back to it? Because you won't answer it. You lied to the pensioners, didn't you?
How do we lie to the pensioners?
So you've got a £22 billion black hole, and on day one, if this was me, tell me I'm wrong, I'd go, right, I'm in debt, I'm going to make cuts. But you gave junior doctors a 28% rise, which cost £11 billion. I know this for a fact, right? When you went to the negotiating table with Wes Streeting for those junior doctors, he put nothing in. 12 months later, they want another 29%. You gave railway drivers, engine drivers a pay rise. If you are heavily in debt, why wouldn't you service that debt and cut it? Why are you giving, on day one, fact here, your union paymasters an increase, hear me out, and yet pensioners are going to lose their warm weather payment? What about the WASPy women? And by the way, this is a fact because we've got it on footage. Your leader went to the National Farmers Union conference and said, we will look after you, and then brought in something, the inheritance tax, that is the biggest attack on the countryside in the history of this country. And you know what you just said about food? Shall I tell you why food prices are going up? Because the people that make the food, the farming community, are being screwed by your government. We're having to import it, and that's why it's more expensive.
So you just talked
Sorry,
about
Crystal's going to give me a fact. What were you going to say? What'd you say? Oh, here you go. This is for you. Jump in UK grocery inflation. The Guardian, your paper 2 days ago, and a blow to households struggling with the cost of living, even in Bournemouth East. Grocery price inflation rose to 4.3% in the 4 weeks to the 22nd of February.
Well, that's not the news report that he should be looking at, and he can continue to have a little bit more of a dig if he wants. But just going to the points that you were making.
It's the Guardian.
Which one do you... Well, doesn't mean I'm going to take what it says as accurate when there are other reports.
Do you think it's fair what you did to the pensioners?
Tell me one thing you want me to focus on from the many things you just said there.
The pensioners.
So let me ask you a question. Do you think that somebody, irrespective of the income they have, should be able to receive a state handout each year?
No, but I don't believe that that's the answer to a blanket approach to many old people who couldn't heat themselves. And your own research said, your government research said that 4,000 old people will have lost their lives.
So
I'm going to cynically suggest your party doesn't care about those people because they'll be dead and won't be able to vote for you.
I'm going to reject that entirely, because in politics people come to Parliament to make a difference that's positive for our communities, and absolutely we would never do anything like that.
What about the waspy women? You lied to them,
on
Tom.
the question about pensioners, we agree that there should not be a blanket handout of the winter fuel payment. You just said the exact same thing. So it then becomes a question of where you draw the line. And where the line was drawn by the government... You redrew the line when she did a U-turn.
Well, it was blanket and then she redrew it.
The line was drawn after a significant uptake of pension credit to get more people to be eligible. What was the next thing that you wanted to talk about?
Waspy women you lied to.
How did we lie to waspy women?
You said you'd pay them their money.
I'm not sure that we did say that. I never went into an election with a manifesto committing to pay waspy women.
You went into an election with a manifesto that you patently didn't follow through. What about farmers? You stood in front of the National Farming Union and said, and I quote, "I am here for you," and then brought in an inheritance tax that people have killed themselves over. Fact.
Well, I am always very happy to go and speak before the National Farmers Union. I did not, in fact, myself go and speak before the NFU.
Keir Starmer did.
I'm not Keir Starmer. You said I did this.
But he's your leader.
And the point I'm making here is that actually under the Conservatives, farmers were left high and dry. You think about the Brexit deal that was secured.
Keep blaming. I am not a supporter of the Tories, but you will not survive if you talk repeatedly about the past. There have been 16 known U-turns. I ask you as a Labour backbencher, are you one of those ones who's fed up with your leader and his U-turns?
I'm sick and tired of media commentators across different platforms trying to create drama because the country has become addicted in our media.
It's broken.
To a diet of drama.
Country's broken.
In Parliament, when I'm talking with colleagues on all sides of the House, they want stability to crack on with the government's legislative agenda, which is about taking renters away from unscrupulous landlords and evictions. It's about inflation coming down, interest rates down by 6 times. It's about the cost of living easing. It's about trying to protect our British interests and our bases.
You talk about the media saying things. That is not right.
It's investing £13 billion extra in defence because we have to make sure we are protected as a country.
Right. £16 billion in defence. We've got one ship and it can't even get to Cyprus. Let's ask you the obvious question. Are you happy with the Labour government's response to the Iran crisis?
We have anti-drone systems, we have anti-missile systems, we've got F-35s, we've got Typhoons, we've got helicopters.
They're not in Cyprus protecting Brits, though, are they?
They're taking down drones all over the place, including over Cyprus. So you're a football fan, right? You're a West Ham fan.
With it?
So you think about the first game of a Euros. Sometimes you don't have your top 11, but in the second game you do.
What are you talking about, the cabinet?
And you get to your second game and you've got your whole suite of resources. We have got plenty of defensive capabilities in Cyprus and across the region that will be bolstered by having HMS Dragon there.
Can we just stop? Because listen, we'll be. This is what we do, right? But you're saying stuff that is patently untrue.
So is it untrue that we have
any intelligent prime minister, let me speak. Any intelligent prime minister would have seen, irrespective of Trump. And by the way, I don't agree with everything Donald Trump says, right? But here's the thing: any intelligent prime minister would have gone, do you know what? It is patently obvious that the fleet is growing in the Gulf, and would have been proactive and prepared. I'll tell you the biggest criticism of this prime minister from the people that speak to me and stuff like this, and I'd love your take on this, right, is that this man, whatever you said, didn't come to government with a plan. This man has pandered to so many different factions, whether it's the Parliamentary Labour Party, whether it's certain communities or whatever, that he's basically hamstrung. And this is another example. Sarah Vine just said it. Tom, leaders lead even when it's unpopular. He doesn't lead. Whatever we think about Iran, his entire approach is what's right, internationally law-based. That's not how you govern. And, mate, I don't want to be disrespectful because I'm glad you're here, right? Your message is not cutting through. The Green Party, who are, at best, barking mad and want to legalise heroin and open the borders and go and shake, what did that madman say, go and shake Vladimir Putin's hand. Labour is nowhere to be seen. The British people have rejected every facet of your government, and there's no point in talking to me about things that you think of. Well, you've got to accept what the opinion polls and the country is saying. He's out of his depth, Tom. Massively.
The Prime Minister is leading through an international crisis with calmness and with moderation. That's exactly what you want. And you talk about leadership.
Is he?
Keir Starmer's...
Tell me why Bahrain... Forget Starmer. Forget Trump. What about Cyprus, the UAE and Bahrain, who have slagged him off this morning? Answer that.
With the greatest respect, I wanted to come on to speak to your viewers and to speak with you. And so you've just raised a point with me, and I think on behalf of your viewers, I'd really like to respond.
Okay.
And again, thank you for having me on.
My pleasure.
In terms of leadership, Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, is getting a fair deal of criticism because he has departed from the position of President Trump. He has done that because he doesn't think it's in Britain's national interest to engage in an offensive mission of choice which puts our British bases, our interests, our economy at risk. He did that after a long time of trying to build a positive relationship with President Trump and then realising that President Trump after Venezuela is on a pathway in his presidency to a different kind of foreign policy. What Keir Starmer did was to show leadership, to decide it's not right to learn the lessons of Iraq, to get involved in a war that we shouldn't be involved in.
So he's not pandering to the Muslim community vote then because of the Green Party?
For Britain's national interest.
He says that. Was he not, in your opinion, pandering to a certain section of the community because he's terrified by the Greens?
I can promise you this, hand on heart, from the conversations I've had with the Prime Minister.
Okay.
On international matters where he has stood by Zelensky, he has stood up for Britain's interest. This is a man who feels that patriotic duty very deeply. You may disagree and the country may disagree in part.
I don't think he's patriotic at all.
I will say from having spoken with him that this is a man who loves his country and is doing his best to stand up for our interests in a very uncertain world.
I say to you as well, I'm delighted you came in. Two things. Reg Gardner, Jeremy, can you please tell this gentleman he's not a clue what's going on in the country? My wife and I both work full-time. We have no dependents. We live in a housing association property. By the time we've paid our bills, there's nothing left. We go to the local food centre handout to eat. That's how bad it is. How dare he tell me that food hasn't gone up in price? Also, I
said there was a single news report which showed...
But do you believe the prices have gone down? Do you believe prices have gone down?
As a politician, I've got to be led by the evidence, and when there was a news report from a reputable think tank which said that prices were coming down for food, and that in the spring statement it showed that inflation was falling from 3.4% to 3%, a sharp drop, interest rates down by 6 times.
BBC UK inflation fell to 3% in January, down from 3.4%, driven by food, fuel and airfares. I'll give you that.
There you go. So that was the report on the BBC.
But I mean,
whether you believe the BBC or not.
And of course I don't believe the BBC.
But hang on a second, that's
the most biased national broadcast on history. But listen, I want to say something before we go.
About Reg?
Will you come?
Reg?
Yes.
So Reg here has an extraordinarily important point. The statistics, the reports may say that the cost of living is easing. He needs to feel it. My constituents need to feel it. We've got to keep on working to get the cost of living down. It is our #1 priority. But I will just say this to Reg. We've got to hold our nerve as a country through this Gulf crisis because we will see prices go up and it's not our intention to see them going up.
I think we're non-existent on the international stage. Will you come back again?
I will come back again.
What did you tell me about waspy women?
I believe, I'm trying to remember because you said so many things that I'm struggling to recall what I said.
You promised waspy women they get their money and you said no we didn't. This is Angela Rayner. Do you want to watch this clip and listen?
I said that
this is Angela Rayner.
I think I said in a manifesto it wasn't there.
This is Angela Rayner, your deputy leader. There she is. Listen to her.
When was that?
Listen to her.
Well, the government failed the women who were born in the 1950s. They stole their pension, that contract, that agreement that they thought they had, and then accelerated it so that those women didn't have the chance to prepare for that. We've said we'll right that injustice, and within the 5 years of the Labour government we will compensate them for the money that they've lost. This is their money that they've had stolen off them, and it's completely unacceptable. And any government should act responsibly to these women who have looked after their children through that period. They're often looking after elderly relatives now, and they're a part of our society that have felt really unjust by the way they've been treated, and it's absolutely right that we deal with this issue.
Tom Hayes, good enough to come in. Your response to that to finish?
Well, I just asked you when that was aired.
When you were in opposition, final year, became Prime Minister, yeah.
And as we were closing in on the election and having to make some serious decisions about what was possible with the money left to us, we have a £2.7 trillion deficit, which we pay £105 billion on each year on interest.
He lied to the waspy women, though.
That is unacceptable, and you have to make tough decisions as a government. That was the pledge that was made in opposition. Our manifesto didn't commit to what Angela was saying there, and you've got to make tough decisions in government. I think that by the time of the general election, the country will have seen this government take very tough decisions to get our economic foundations right, our defence is boosted, and our pride back to our communities.
And I respect you for coming in, but I have to tell you, when the next election comes, your party will be blown off the political map. Listen, great. Shake my hand. We'll have you back. Tom Hayes, good to come in, make that point. Labour MP, Bournemouth East. What is it, 8:45? We're back in 3.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's 8:45. He just said to me, Tom Hayes, as he left the studio, Jesus Christ, you're on it, man. 3 questions a minute. What's going on? That's because I've been up since 2 a.m. You listen, I'll give him respect for being here, but let me tell you something. If you're going to say something and you're not telling the truth, you're going to be found out. This is the home of common sense. Even Ricky, the world's greatest content editor, has walked in with a smile. Ricky, why are you smiling, son? Where's he gone? I can't... Oh, he's very happy. Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, and I mean this, I say this to Ricky as well, respect him for coming on, and I mean that, and he's going to come back, and I want this show to be that opportunity. That is the most important thing. Breakfast till 10. Alex Phillips in for Julia, Ian Collins, and Kevin O'Sullivan. I've got to say, give it a listen even. Sounding fantastic on Drive this afternoon, talking about the big stories. We're going to say a very good morning. Christ, I need to come back to a semblance of normality. Tom Tugendhat, former security minister, has been left for 10 minutes downstairs, also been arguing the toss with some deranged Labour MP. Tom, good morning.
Jeremy, don't worry at all. I was watching that. I mean, what can I say? Look, I respect the guy. I mean, he turned up and he put in a fight, right? But yeah, I mean, wow.
I mean, listen. Everybody knows what I said about the Tory government at the end. Everybody.
I remember.
But waspy women. There was Angela Rayner promising to do the waspy women. And you can't have it always. But listen, he believes in what he did. He says food prices are going out. And apparently the reports say they're not. Listen, he was good enough to come in. He believes in Keir Starmer.
They're rising more slowly. I mean, okay. Yeah. They're rising more slowly.
With you, I always wanted you on the show today. It hasn't come up on the screen, by the way. But can I just ask you, before we talk about China, you're an ex-military man. I found myself yesterday, Tom, more infuriated than I think I've ever been. I almost imploded on air. I was brought up, Great Britain, you know, was a proud nation, you know, our Navy, our Air Force, our Army. I sat here yesterday on air. And take whatever about being there initially with the Americans, but once you allow your bases, you're involved. And as I've said repeatedly about the Iranian regime, if people would only get from behind the idea of international law and understand what these mad mullahs have done on the streets of Britain and across the world, but to see, and this is to you as a military man, to see a Greek frigate that's already been beaten by a French frigate, and to know that the only frigate we've got is stuck in Portsmouth, HMS dragging its feet, as I now call it, I actually, for the first time, felt embarrassed yesterday, Tom Tugendhat.
Well, look, I find it very difficult to know what to say. And the reason I say that is because we've known this was coming for at least 4 weeks. You could argue several months. We've seen the US military build up. Now, you can argue, and it's a perfectly reasonable argument, and one, in fact, that I share a lot with, that we shouldn't be attacking Iran. You know, we should see if we can get through this in a different way, largely because I fought in Iraq and I know what the next day looks like. But that's not the same as saying we're not going to be prepared in case something happens. And, you know, had we ordered our destroyer, our Type 45 destroyer, Dragon or Dauntless or Duncan, to go to Cyprus or to go to the UAE, we would have one of the world's finest air defense systems in the region. Now, not only would that have protected our bases in Akrotiri and Deucalion, where, you know, we've got British families living, families of service people we've sent out there to protect us, but we'd also be able to protect our allies in the region. I don't know if you've seen Tip Shipman's piece, but this is why what Kemi raised at PMQs yesterday was so important. This is why the leadership that Kemi's demonstrating is so important, and why reaching out to people like Pierre Poilievre and others is really important. Because this isn't just about us. You know, countries like the UAE, Bahrain, Saudi, Qatar, Kuwait, you know, we've been allies in various different ways, sometimes in ways that they may not have chosen, but, you know, for over 100 years. And they're now looking at us and they're going, hang on a minute, you've got bases on our soil. You're making us a target in different ways. Why the hell would we have you here if you're not going to offer us some form of protection? And to have the answer be, oh, well, the law says. Well, mate, if that's what the law says, you can naff off and take your lawyers with them.
Well, the problem with the international law is, and I said it earlier, and some people were offended, I'd like the Hermers and the Starmers of this world to sit with the parents of the kids who were blown to smithereens in the Manchester Arena bombings and explain to them that international law is the number one concern. Like you, I don't necessarily think one has to agree to go in on the initial strikes, but the point of the matter is why I supported Trump when he came into power and was quite strong in his wording about NATO. This country and Europe in its entirety has relied massively on America, financially and in terms of weaponry, and you now have an American president saying, and it's his right, I'm putting the American people first, and saying to Europe, pull your finger out. Lo and behold, he did, and suddenly everybody's spending more on defences. But I was embarrassed. I mean, talk about being slow to the table. Do you think he has damaged the relationship with A, America, and B, our allies forever, Keir Starmer, through his just, I don't know, madness, I don't know, slowness, whatever?
Well, let me put it like this. Look, I got a series of text messages over the last few days from people I'd served with over the last 20, 25 years. Slightly embarrassingly, they're all now generals, and I never quite made it that far.
Oh, Tom, bless you. And you're on the Jeremy Kyle breakfast show. It's all gone, Tom.
Oh, well, there you go. And they're not. Exactly. Right. Yeah. You're quite right, Jeremy.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm joking.
But, you know, it's quite something. You're getting text messages from 2, 3-star, 4-star American generals and British generals and you know, people I grew up with, basically. And you're going... And they're asking what the hell's going on? What's happened to Britain? And the answer is pretty simple. We've got a leader who doesn't lead, but who thinks that his job is to give legal advice to the British people. I don't want a legal advisor. I want somebody who's going to keep me and my kids safe. That's what I want. And the job of me as a politician, you know, my first job is to defend the people of Tunbridge. And the second job, perhaps even my most important job, is to make sure this country is safe. And the only way I can do that is by thinking every single day about one thing that keeps us stronger, makes us safer, and builds up our partnerships. And sadly, refusing to think ahead, refusing to make the decision and turn around that submarine that's heading to Australia, refusing to send out a destroyer a month ago rather than 2 days ago, is just complete evidence that what we've got here is we've just got this sort of wishy-washy, indecisive, you know nothing administration, and all they want to do is they want to sound reasonable. They want to sound good. I don't care how you sound. I want to be safe.
Has he ruined the special relationship forever with America?
Not forever, no, but he's certainly made it worse. Look, the reality is the special relationship's about the relationship between our countries and our armies and our intelligence services and our investment and all the rest of it. It's between people. That's what makes it special, actually. It's not between, you know, the White House and Number 10. But the truth is, he hasn't done it any good. There's no question about that.
Also, we haven't got long, but Labour plunged into a fresh Chinese spying crisis yesterday after Labour MP Joni Reid's husband, David Taylor, a lobbyist, arrested with amongst 2 other men who were believed to have worked in the Blair government during a series of raids. Badenoch, quite rightly, I thought, told Starmer to grow a backbone and treat Beijing as the threat we all know it is. They've agreed to the super embassy. What are your thoughts on this? Couple of minutes, Tom.
Well, look, I think Kemi's absolutely right. And this isn't a partisan point. You know, we've sadly seen too much attempts to undermine British democracy and all parties in various different ways over the last 5-10 years. But this is a constant reminder that China is a hostile state and behaving in a hostile state towards us, in a hostile way towards us. They're trying to spy on us. They're trying to intimidate Hong Kongers here in the UK. They're trying to steal secrets, which just, by the way, isn't just a game. It means stealing jobs, stealing ideas, stealing companies off us. It's a really serious problem. And instead, we've got a prime minister who goes over to Beijing basically to get insulted, as far as I could tell, and a chancellor who went over a year earlier and came back with so little money. Google invests more in the UK than the money that she
is our parliament compromised by China, briefly?
It depends what you mean by compromised, in the sense that is there pressure on it? Yes, a little bit. Compromise? No. I mean, look, everything that happens in Parliament is basically public anyway, and as you know, so it's not that kind of a compromise, if you see what I mean. The problem is that what we're seeing again and again and again is this influence. Now, what really annoys me, though, Jeremy, and frankly, I've got to say, I've had enough of this. Every single time this happens, I get, oh yeah, more concerns. Yeah, no, we're really concerned. Oh yeah, no, we're sharing your concern. Look, we left you with laws like the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme and the National Security Act that I took through Parliament to deal with this. Well, stop saying you're concerned and start actually doing something. You know, you could easily be using this incident to make sure China is on the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme at the enhanced level so that we could know where Chinese money is going in the UK. And you're right, it wouldn't catch every spy. Of course it wouldn't, but it'd be a damn good starting point, which is more than we seem to have now.
You know, I love the bones of you, mate. My late, great mate, James Whale, always said you were one of the best, so I can finish with this question. Whilst the world burns, loads of MPs yesterday in Portcullis House dancing, Strictly Come Dancing style with the Speaker, whilst the world is on a precipice. Tell me you weren't there.
Not only was I not there, I don't think anybody wants to see me cha-cha-cha.
Just, that's the issue. That might seem really shallow. That's what's wrong with this government. That's pathetic. Tom Tugendhat, listen, great to have you on, pal. We'll have a drink very soon. Lovely, lovely man. Thank you so much indeed. Former Security Minister. It's almost 9 o'clock. Listen, she's here, London's mayoral candidate, Layla Cunningham. We'll take your calls in the next 45 minutes. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. What are we calling this? Call Cunningham. Christ, that's creatively brilliant, isn't it? So get your calls into Layla. She's next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Over the past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury, one of the largest, most complex, most overwhelming military offensives the world has ever seen. Nobody's seen anything like it. We have hit hundreds of targets in Iran, including Revolutionary Guard facilities, Iranian air defense systems. Just now, it was announced that we knocked out 9 ships plus their naval building, all in a matter of literally minutes. Iran's formerly supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei, is dead.
I spoke to you about the situation in the Gulf and explained that the United Kingdom was not involved in the strikes on Iran. That remains the case. The basis of our decision is the collective self-defense of long-standing friends and allies and protecting British lives. That is in accordance with international law, and we are publishing a summary of our legal advice. We are not joining these strikes, but we will continue with our defensive actions in the region.
Mr Farage, would a reform government have allowed US forces to use UK air bases for offensive operations in Iran?
Yes is the answer to your question. I would have said to the Americans, please do use our bases. We will be supportive of you on this.
There were a series of very loud blasts in the area of Dubai that I'm based in. That's in the Marina area. It's a very touristy area, actually. Those blasts were the loudest we've heard yet, but equally we are reassured that they are most likely the sound of interception by the UAE's quite sophisticated THAAD interception kit. That is the Terminal High Altitude Area Defence System.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. It's gone 9 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk, of course, the home of common sense and the home of the alarm clock Britain. What a bleeding morning it is. If you are waking up or you've just joined us, overnight, a lot of our allies in the Middle East have started to slag off Starmer. The UAE, Cyprus, Bahrain saying he was too slow to the table. But don't worry. Trump's called him a loser with no future and no friends. He's very steadfastly standing behind international law. Just to give you an idea of how pathetic we look on the world stage, HMS Dragon, your feet, is still stuck in Portsmouth, our only frigate, whilst every other ship, it seems, from every other country has already landed in Cyprus. The plane that was... The plane that was sent to evacuate Brits from Dubai didn't take off due to a technical problem. That's later on. So the planes don't work and the boats don't work. And yesterday afternoon, my friends, this is no word of a bleeding lie. Whilst the country burnt, many Labour MPs and a Green MP spent the afternoon doing a Strictly Come Dancing dance troupe in Portcullis House. I ask you this, the world's going barking mad, and actually, apart from talk, I mean, I just think we're speaking sense. Join us, by the way, this hour. I'm very... What was that? We're very delighted to welcome my friend, and if I have anything to do with it, she'll be the next Mayor of London. Layla Cunningham, how are you?
how are you?
I'm all right. Now, listen, we do this with Robert Jenrick and we called it Ring Rob, right?
Okay.
So there's been a huge amount of creative ability put into this and they've decided to call it Call Cunningham.
Great name.
It's crap, isn't it? 0344 499 1000. If you're in London, if you're further afield, this lady is taking on Sadiq Khan in the mayoral London race. What do you want to ask her? 0344 499 1000. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. Anything you want. I'm going to start with asking you your response to this yesterday. I'm speaking to an expat who's living in Dubai. Her name is Ellie Merritt. And this is what she said as she sat in a building that has or could be, there could be attacks with drones. This is her comparing that to Sadiq Khan's London. Have a listen. Despite the fact that you're sat in Dubai and there have been drone attacks from the Iranian regime, you feel safer than you do in Sadiq Khan's London, where you used to live.
Yeah, for sure.
Why is that? What was it about London that you didn't feel safe about?
I think, look, everyone's going to have their opinions again, but I think with the way that the UAE has been looking after the city and what's been going on in the UAE, I do feel very safe. There have been 98% of the missiles have been intercepted over here, and I don't think there's any other place in the world where these types of missiles would be intercepted.
How would you describe London? I know you've been there 4 years. What would your criticisms of London be? I mean, not that it's the centre of the world for stabbing and crime, because it is.
I mean, look, you said it yourself. I think, yeah, the crime there, especially for safety for women, that was one of the biggest reasons why I moved over here. So I think, yeah, naturally, yes, unfortunately, there has been some fatalities over here, but in terms of if we were looking over crime over the last week or so in the UK, I'm sure there was a lot more.
Just honestly, you and I spend so much time talking together.
Yeah.
A woman in Dubai where drone missiles could land on her building feels safer than she does in Sadiq Khan's London, Layla.
So she finds a war zone safer. I mean, that's because Dubai is effectively a war zone now. And she's not wrong, by the way. In January alone, there were 777 rapes recorded. There's one almost every hour on average. Only 4% end in a charge, Jeremy. That means 94% of rapes do not even see the light of day. And I spoke to a rape victim who was raped, and she contacted me in desperation. And I spoke to her, and she said that the police have told her, we're not going to charge this rape because you were smiling when you were walking with him in the CCTV. And she was banned after from going into the Haven, which is where rape victims go.
Is this the Met Police?
This is the Met Police. Hang on. I wrote to the Met Police on her behalf, and I said, why, I want to help this woman. Why are you not even investigating it? And they said, well, there's evidence that she was smiling on the CCTV before. And listen to this. They said, we cannot be sure that a jury will convict. So basically, they are acting as judge and jury because I said that is a trial matter. It is not a matter for the police to decide. They didn't even send it to the CPS.
It's just frightening. I mean, listen, I don't live in London anymore, but I see a man who has ruined the livelihoods of black cabs.
And you know what else?
Be obsessed. I was on the tube the other day and there seems to be a line of lines, faces. Oh, he's one employee of the month because he eats eggs for lunch. And you say, well, the trains are crap and covered in graffiti. Here's a question, straight to it. You're standing. Stephen says, Howard Cox promised to abandon ULEZ and the congestion charge. Will Layla promise the same in London?
Yes, I will definitely abandon the ULEZ. Listen, I am sick and tired of... I love cars. I think cars are one of the best inventions we have, and there are mothers, disabled people. I don't want to be punished for using my car and going about my day.
If you win, can you do something about that bloody... We go along the embankment at 3 o'clock in the morning past Battersea, and honestly, a hedgehog is allowed to go faster.
I know.
20 mile an hour. I might as well walk backwards. I don't understand it. Near schools, yes, but generally, no.
And also, so when I drive at 20 miles per hour on, let's say, Bayswater Road, my kids are like, Mum, why aren't you driving? Why are you going so slow?
I know, ridiculous.
And it's just a cash cow, Jeremy. I actually did traffic court once, a few times when I was a prosecutor, and it's people coming in having done 23 miles per hour, and they've racked up 12 points just for going 23 miles per hour. That destroys their livelihood. They can't take kids to school. They can't take their mum, their elderly mum to the hospital. And on big roads like that, It is literally, it's a tax. It's another tax on drivers. It's got to go.
So much. Sean in Somerset said, morning, Jez. I watched the Reform presser yesterday, and as a father of daughters, I have to say a huge thank you to Layla for her willingness to protect her young girls and women in London, to Reform for wanting to get justice for the rape gang victims. If you have a woman in your family, whatever your political colour, this woman is the woman to get behind. That's really nice. Adrian's in Wales. Morning, Layla. Whatever bold policies you may take into government, like everyone else, I sadly think you'll run up against the brick wall of a civil service that simply refuses to enact them. What specifically does Reform plan to do about that? It may mean mass sackings. Have Reform got the spine to do this, Layla Cunningham?
Has he seen Nigel the past 20 years? If anyone has the spine, if any leader has the spine to do it, it's him. And, you know, the thing about going back to London is it's basically been a political closed shop. You know, it's Labour and Conservatives ping-ponging power to each other. One complains, the other one wins, the other one complains, but nothing changes. No. You know, actually, young people can't buy a house, crime is rampant, shops are all vape shops and candy shops, nothing ever changes. And for once, you know, we're not here to prop up that system, and it's the same nationally. We're here to break it up.
Let's go to the phones. She should be able to hear in the studio, right? This is Dave in London. Dave, good morning.
Good morning, Jeremy. Layla, how are you?
How are you? Hi, Dave.
What do you want to ask Layla? Time is money. Come on, my friend.
OK, I'll be very quick. I went to a council meeting about a couple of months ago, my first one ever, which was just the wards that meet with the local councillors, and by complete chance, the head of the council and his CFO were there to discuss the budgets. And they're putting council tax up by 5%. They've also gotten an extra 20 million a year for this, you know, where they take it off one place to a deprived council. He said the good thing is we've got a 3-year plan, because that's the new thing that councils have. And a member of the audience says, well, what's your plan for council tax over 3 years? He deflected a couple of times, not wanting to answer the question, then said, I, as the CFO, have recommended the full 5% for the next 3 years. So this is being locked in. There's not going to be a debate every year about, oh, how's my council tax going up? In Hounslow, it is locked in at 5% for the next 3 years, end of story, because that's what the CFO told us at a meeting a month ago. So in order to get council tax down, or at least not up, I'm just trying to phone you up to advise you. You've got to get some councillors that have a little bit of nous as to what questions to ask. The questions asked by these 9 councillors, 4 Tories, 6 Labour, they were woeful.
Mate, make it a specific question. Quick, come on.
How are you going to get council tax down without just saying, I think I'll just say I'll get council tax down and it'll come down? Because it won't.
You've asked the question, shush, come on.
Yeah, so yesterday, funnily enough, in Westminster, we had our budget meeting for the council, and Reform asked the question before to the council, tell me how much all your DEI programmes are.
Yep.
And you know what the answer was? We can't quantify it because it's embedded in everything. So councils are paying effectively millions for DEI programmes that nobody ever voted for. And listen, we yesterday had an incredible man join us from the Labour Party in London, Sir Robin Wales, and he ran Newham Council. He was the mayor of Newham, and he froze council tax, and it was consistently voted as the best council.
Are you committing to that across London?
No, listen, London is a palace of many different rooms, and it will be,
great line.
you know, and there's many different issues. Hackney is different to Romford, is different to Bexley, and we have no idea what we're going to find. But the aim is really just to prioritise people. So, for instance, a lot of councils now have declared a climate emergency. I think that's not people's priorities in London. Priority, we're going to declare a safety priority and a cost of living priority. And the aim is service, 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 not ideology.
Dave, thank you very much indeed. JK, you could call the segment Layla's Listening. Just crack on. Max, Layla. Spelt with an E, it's wrong. If the next mayoral election is going to be an even playing field and Layla has to have a fair chance of winning, does she agree there has to be an end to postal voting?
Yes, I do. Across the board, postal voting has to go, and Nigel was very clear, and I agree with him, because if you don't allow family voting or pressure in the booth, in the polling booth, but it's being allowed at home, what's the difference? What's the point of having privacy in the polling booth when you don't have privacy at home?
Listen, I covered Gorton and Denton. I had Sarah Poach and I had them all on, and Reform, this is a fact. this isn't biased, got the same vote locally, 29%, that it got nationally. And of course, when Farage came out and said that about, you know, family voting and postal voting, a few of the cynics would say sour grapes. There was definitely sectarian voting.
Yes.
There was definitely a system that is illegal, whatever side. Do you believe, here's a question from Mary, can what happened in Gorton and Denton happen in London? The Greens are a real threat with sectarian voting?
100%. You know, we are facing the same kind of challenges that Gorton and Denton did.
Yeah.
And I don't think people actually are aware about how dangerous the Greens are. So, for instance, you know, my kids are about to turn 18, Jeremy.
All of them?
Well, no.
She's got as many as me,
year,
peeps.
Every year, but I don't want them to be able to access Class A drugs.
No.
You know, and that worries me greatly. And, for instance, our mayor in Newham, he worked with youth and he knows how detrimental Class A drugs are to youth, and that's one of the reasons why he's running.
Well, let's call the Greens out for what they are.
Yeah,
We're going to legalise heroin and
I mean.
cocaine and all that stuff.
Say no to heroin, vote reform. You know, because Labour and Conservatives really are very down in the polls in London. Do not allow Class A drugs to proliferate on our streets, because that's what Greens want to do.
Steve says, so can I just check, did you promise to reduce council tax for Londoners?
No, I can't promise that. I'm not going to be running the councils. And, you know, no, we can't promise that now.
But you'll bring pressure to bear if you can.
Yeah, listen, we are going to go back to basics. You know, it's going to be housing, affordability, safety, clean streets, remove LTNs.
What's an LTN?
Low traffic neighbourhoods.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. Is that the 20 mile an hour stuff?
No, even worse, Jeremy. They block streets off because, you know, I don't know, to reduce environment, to reduce congestions, and then you get bottlenecks around. Most residents hate it, but it's been dumped on so many boroughs in London.
It's good for the environment. This is Steve, also in London. What can or will you do, Layla, about illegals being given housing in London? Will their benefits be removed? Schooling, housing, etc., if you're the new mayor?
Yeah, so in terms of housing being removed, that requires national legislation. But what we've seen in London is 15 boroughs, including Westminster, the most expensive real estate, second most expensive borough in London, in the country, has declared itself a sanctuary borough for refugees, which means that they will, their whole policy is geared towards prioritising them for housing and public services. And what people don't realise, people arrive on a boat, Jeremy, they are illegal migrants, they say the word asylum.
On an RNLI boat?
Yeah.
The migrant taxi service, let's not forget that.
They're treated as asylum seekers.
Yeah.
Once that claim is granted, which about 80 to 90% are for certain...
87%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They become refugees. And due to current legislation, this is a betrayal of Tory and Labour, due to current legislation, they are deemed most in need, and the Equalities Act says that you cannot discriminate on the basis of nationality, and they lump British people in that. And I tell people this, if you cannot be prioritised in your own country, then where the hell can you? So, and that, by the way, that is, so refugees go to the top of the list, and that's why you see massive demographic change in parts of London.
Yeah.
Because they've been put in massive numbers in certain areas. And you and I know that if immigration is low in numbers, people have to assimilate. Cool. If it's big in numbers, they dominate. And that's what we've seen in certain areas in Hamlet. So, they are prioritised for housing while our veterans sleep rough. We think this is a disgrace, and reform councils will prioritise veterans and Londoners and people who have local connections.
Don't even get me on the Troubles bill. I nearly combusted about what's going on in Iraq. Not all about London. Jennifer says commemorations for the Ayatollah Khomeini were held, including a candlelit vigil at an Islamic centre in Manchester yesterday. Can you please make any sense of this, says Jennifer?
I can't make any sense. The fact that the IRGC is not prescribed as a terrorist organisation here.
Would reform
yes,
do that, day
100%. The fact that the
Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
The Muslim Brotherhood is not prescribed. When you have the countries in the UAE saying that they will not send their students here because they are worried about Islamic radicalisation, we have a serious problem. We are a terrorist threat for the Middle East. I mean, imagine that, Jeremy. We have been run by cowards. And listen, this is not only a Labour thing. The Tories also tolerated madrasas that were incubators for hate. And I remember meeting a minister about 15 years ago, and he was telling us this, and it was in a small kind of meeting. And I said, well, why don't you just shut them down? And he said, oh, no, we can't do that, you know. We've been run by cowards. And as a result, we do have a national security risk in our country.
Do you think, and again, it's a really difficult job during what's going on, because we were talking about to the ex-head of MI6 the other day, Sir Richard Dearlove, about, you know, the terror effect and what does it mean for people? Because you'll know this. If you tell people there's a terror level increase, they panic, and if you say nothing, they accuse you of doing nothing. Do you think that London's at risk of terror attacks?
The whole country is. We might have sleeper cells. When people come on listen, if I'm a Taliban or a Muslim Brotherhood, I'm not going to apply for a visa. I'm never going to get it. So, you know, I rock up on a boat, I say the word asylum, I've thrown all my passports, I say I'm from another country, you know, I'm being persecuted in Kuwait because I'm a homosexual.
I'm actually sorry, I'm actually an 11-year-old boy and I've got a white beard and an Adam's apple.
And I prosecuted those, by the way. But, and that comes in, and why would you not? And the problem is, I don't even think the government is aware of how many we have. That's the problem.
I don't think they care.
So they don't even know.
I'm sorry, I think they don't care. I think it's dreadful.
And that's a dereliction of duty. Imagine after September 11th. No, but what people don't realise, actually, in London, we had a convicted bomb maker from the Muslim Brotherhood arrive on a boat, and because they are not prescribed, the Home Office considered his asylum claim, put him in a 4-star hotel in Ealing. 4-star hotel for 18 months, Jeremy.
Great,
and then he went to rape a woman in Hyde Park. They are endangering Londoners.
Can I ask you...
And just to go back to the Greens,
yeah,
sorry.
Go.
His Christmas message was from the border saying we need to welcome illegal migrants.
What, old Zach Polanski?
Yes.
Do you know what I call him?
Yes.
Hypnotits.
Yeah, he is hypnotist. And women should know that he is really a charlatan.
But this man is saying, and this is a really important thing, and whatever people think about me, he is saying that we should open our borders and anybody should be able to come in. That, to me, is enough of a problem. But he says, and I genuinely quote this, every single migrant who comes into this country should get a house, a wage, even if they don't work, and medical attention. They would bankrupt this country if it's not already screwed under this government within 5 minutes. Can you ask Layla about the epidemic of people not paying fares? Oh, this is me.
Yeah.
I love this. On the trains and especially buses, there are so many fare dodgers and so many people with freedom passes, and that's not including the elderly. That's Andy in southwest London. Great question.
Yeah, I mean, when we have to go back to the broken windows approach in New York, everything must be prosecuted. Everything, because you can't have chaos, you can't have people paying and not people paying. And Robert Jenrick did a great video on it, really highlighting it. And it's almost become normal.
Let's get... Sorry, go on. How do you do that, though?
Well, you need to have more British Transport Police there prosecuting it. You know, you need to have police where it happens all the time. And
I'll give you a little example. I thought about this. I'm going to tell you the other day.
You can ban people from TfL. You know.
That's interesting. I mean, I was going to tell you this the other day. What? Sorry, I do apologise. Somebody's... what I was going to say to you is there was the Southwestern trains that I take down to Bournemouth. They've now got 2 revenue officers that walk along as well as that. Maybe that's something that could happen, right?
Well, I mean, it's a crime. You know, you are stealing from TfL and effectively the taxpayer, and it's got to be prosecuted. It is just fundamentally unfair, and that is the problem. People feel in London that criminals are getting away with everything, and normal families who drive a car, who go about their day, are being crushed by the system. And that's got to change.
Let's go to Hampshire, I think it is. Laura Jane, you're through to Layla Cunningham. Good morning.
Good morning, Layla.
Hi, good morning.
Much looking forward to our Hampshire time in the limelight on Tuesday. Nigel's coming to meet us all. Anyway, 2-part question. When reform gets in and when you are mayor, would you put Maggie Oliver in charge of a rape gang inquiry? That actually goes ahead.
Yeah, I've been speaking to Maggie. What a phenomenal woman. You know, that woman deserves... I mean, she's a national hero. And... I don't. If Maggie would, she'd be the perfect person, you know.
Without any shadow of a doubt. We had her on the show yesterday.
You know, she's incredible, and she's actually going to the High Court today to, and you should all know this. She's actually doing a judicial review claim against the government because the previous rape gang inquiry had about 20 recommendations.
Yep.
Really, none.
3.5 years ago.
Yeah.
She's on the show yesterday. None. And so, and just to point to the inquiry now, Labour and somehow the Conservatives are really supporting it. It's run by a Labour peer, Anne Longfield, who was the Child Commissioner at the time that the reports of these rape gangs came out, and ethnicity and religion was not on the report. And we all know that it's a fundamental part of why these things happen. Yeah.
And so I don't see why Labour have... This is not independent at all. It's a Labour peer marking Labour homework. And not only that, but the terms of reference say that they will not investigate every town or every victim. So it's effectively telling victims you will be silenced and ignored again.
I feel like it's the biggest...
farce.
I think it's like the biggest stain, and I genuinely mean this. We were talking to Maggie yesterday, and always will. The biggest stain, Katie Lamb this morning has written in The Sun, on our society. I cannot believe in any way that this is there has to be, thank you, Laura, it has to be an institutional cover-up. Here's the thing, great question. How widespread are rape gangs in London, and would Reform have a national rape gang inquiry? Because I watched the Conservative woman who stood against Sadiq Khan, and this is what he does.
I know.
I don't understand the question. Are there rape gangs in London? I don't understand how she's put the question.
Yeah, I know.
He's the most...
Can you define rape gangs? Can you define grooming gangs?
We've now got a Sadiq Khan impression by Layla Cunningham.
Well, so, I've read some transcripts, and very harrowing, but victims from Oxford and other places have said that they were driven to London. There were hundreds of men, and they were never asked about them. Another victim said she was driven in the boot of a car to a house in London because her abuser owed people in London, and she was gang raped throughout the night. Sadiq Khan, after all those things came out in their report, said they don't exist. And then after public pressure, Sir Mark Riley said, oh, actually, you know what? We got 9,000 cases wrong. What? How do you get 9,000 cases wrong? And we are reviewing them. So, and I said this yesterday at a press conference. A friend of mine's daughter got very drunk in Hyde Park, and social services rang her just a few months ago and said, actually, you've really got to be careful because there are grooming gangs. And my friend said, what? But Sadiq Khan said there were no grooming gangs in London. And social services says they're very prevalent. Everyone knows they exist. And my question is, why is he saying they don't? What is he covering?
We know why he's saying it. We know what you say.
Yeah.
Why do you think he's saying it? Because much like our Prime Minister, Sadiq Khan plays to a certain part of the community. That's why there was sectarian voting in Gorton and Denton. That's why the Prime Minister, at the exact moment Greece and bloody France were sending boats to Brits in Cyprus who were being attacked by drones from Iran, was in bloody Westminster speaking to some Muslim people, and there's plenty of great Muslim people after Ramadan saying, I'm proud and so will you be that I didn't take part in those attacks. It's totally, they're playing politics, that's the point.
It's with young girls.
With their lives.
You know what else he did? The Express were very good at this. They issued warning notes to people who were committing sexual assault against girls. That means that they basically, a warning note, it's almost like an ASBO, a pedo-ASBO, right? A warning note is for a minor nuisance. Yeah, it is not for child sexual assault or child sexual abuse. That's how they deem it. They deem it as a minor nuisance, and it puts that abuser on notice. And this happened in London. They were giving warning notices, and it was under Keir Starmer that those warning notice policy was granted. So for me, one of my number one priorities, really, because I feel like, I have girls of that age, I know how susceptible they are. There will be a reckoning, Jeremy, and I promise this to the girls and to London. Nobody, I'm not here to play nice, I will do a deep dive. There will be a specialist investigation unit, and I will discover exactly who covered it up, and all those will be prosecuted.
And will Reform have a national rape gang inquiry straight away?
Yeah, but, it has to be independent. It has to be judge-led.
Yeah.
It cannot be, and it has to, like Nigel said, it has to have statutory powers.
Yes, it does. It has to jail people.
It has to jail people. Otherwise, it's just performative.
So she's here, Layla Cunningham, Reform's candidate for mayor in London. She's got 15 more minutes. Get your calls in 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Back in 3. We genuinely are on resignation watch. There is absolutely no doubt about it. Labour MPs, they say, listen, Keir, your position is untenable. This is all about appointing that rat, Peter Mandelson, who faces a criminal investigation.
Can Keir Starmer survive the Mandelson scandal? We have breaking news for you. We've just been talking about, of course, Morgan McSweeney, the Chief of Staff. We've now had another resignation from Number 10. And Keir Starmer's Director of Communications, Tim Allen, has now also resigned. The plot is sickening. The noose is tightening.
UK on DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. 9:30. We're live across the UK. Talk is the home of common sense and, of course, the home of the alarm clock. Brits Alex Phillips from 10, Ian Collins from 1, and Kevin O'Sullivan, brand new on Drive, from 4 o'clock. Glenn, good morning.
Morning, Jeremy, Layla, Glenn in Colchester. Quick question for you. Sadiq Khan has proved that once we have an imbecile as a mayor, the damage that can be caused over a long period of time. I think it's 9 years now, possibly even longer if he did win the next election. Layla, I am sure you will be an absolutely brilliant mayor of London, but just in case, would you pass legislation that says no mayor can stand more than 2 terms, very similar to the President of the United States? Then, God forbid, we do have a bad mayor again, we can limit the damage. Many thanks.
What do you think?
Well, listen, and I think the difference between Reform and other parties and me is we're not here to cling on to 20 years of failure. You know, if we don't do what we say we're going to do, we tell people, please don't vote us again. You know, because that is a contract between us and the voter. If I don't make London better, I don't expect to be voted again.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. Sadiq Khan he feels he's entitled to it. And so
Have you met him?
No, I haven't had the pleasure.
This is going to be extraordinary when you do. Can I just ask you whether you're ready for the pressure of standing for London Mayor? Because you've arrived here this morning, and for the first time in living memory, on the 17th floor of the news building, there's a man dangling outside cleaning the windows, and it's slightly unnerving. That poor bugger is about... You're right, sir, how are you? Just doing a radio programme, you clean the windows. I mean, how frightening is that?
Very.
He's comfy, he's waving at you, for Christ's sake. We'll get some free window cleaning. That was Glenn. Let's go to the phone lines. Robert's in Hertfordshire. Robert, you're through to Layla Cunningham.
Hi, my 2 favourite people I've always wanted to meet. Hi, Layla.
Hi.
I moved up here from Clerkenwell. But there's an alarming amount of pop-up mosques in central London and churches being converted into mosques. Are you going to do anything about it?
Well, you've heard Zia Yusuf announce that we're going to stop that. No churches will be converted into mosques because, number one, our churches are beautiful and should always be preserved. And I've said this many times, you know, we are not a Muslim country. We're not a Muslim city. In fact, I was telling my mum the other day, who's 92, I was like, Mum, you know that... Sadiq Khan hosts, you know, Eid celebrations and Ramadan celebrations, and she goes, really? I go, Mum, does that make you feel happier? You know, she goes, no, I didn't move for that. I didn't move for that. I moved for a British...
Your mother is a Muslim woman, isn't she?
Yes.
Yeah.
She said, I didn't move to England for that. She said, I moved to England for a British city with British values and British culture. And this is what I say, is that when you celebrate every culture equally, or one more than the other, it creates confusion and not unity. It creates division. And so that's why we must, listen, everyone, I'm not saying we should all be the same, but we all have to live under a civic...
Common values.
A civic culture, common values. And that's what London was before.
It was a multicultural city that was bound. If I can jump in,
exactly.
Rob, as well, this is the bit I don't get. And I believe that you will be Sadiq Khan's biggest nightmare, because I think he plays that card. Do you think that he and Starmer, let's have it out, do you think they pander to the Muslim vote?
100%, because what they're doing...
And you are half Muslim. Let's have this out.
I'm Muslim, because it's not that their whole political base, they rely on it. And when you saw Robert Jenrick actually again did a great video highlighting Rachel Reeves' close relationship with someone who effectively espouses terrorists in this country, and it shows that they cling on to power, they value power more than our national security or our national identity. And just in terms of mosques, by the way, I sat on planning, and one of the planning was to convert, you know, a shop in a high street in Westminster to a mosque, at the basement, or just a praying room. And it was about they wanted 200 men to come and pray, or whatever, every 5 times a day. And there were so many people saying, we don't want this, it's not the right place for it. And as the only Muslim on that planning committee, I said no. Everyone else said, oh, this is a fantastic application, because I said, even in the Middle East, you don't just pop up mosques willy-nilly. There's a place of worship, and that's it.
I want to ask you this, because I think it's really, really interesting. I think that we run the danger, and there's reasons for this, but I think we run the danger sometimes of labelling the entire Muslim community, and we shouldn't. What I want, though, is for the unradicalised and unextreme Muslims to stick their heads above the bloody parapet like you've done and say this is unacceptable. What would your message be? Because I find this quite fascinating. I bet you're going to get a load of crap because you're a Muslim woman standing with the values and the beliefs that you do. I think it's genius. What's your message in London, massive Muslim community, who have been told repeatedly, I suspect, by Sadiq Khan, that the system's against you and Britain is a hole and you don't get treated right? You say the complete opposite. What's your message to them?
So there are loads of Muslims like me. Number one, just so people are aware, I get the most threats and hate from Muslims.
Do you?
Yes, I get called, a traitor, a kafir, I should be killed, they're waiting for me. I also get it from people who think Muslims shouldn't be in the country, so I get it from both sides.
What keeps you going then?
Well, because I fundamentally believe that this city is worth fighting for. I'm British as it comes. I'm a foreigner in Egypt when I go. I don't know anything else, and it saddens me. So I was asked actually by a journalist in the Times when I was doing an article, did you suffer racism when you were young because you were Muslim? And I had to think about it. I said, you know what? Nobody cared. Nobody cared that I was Muslim. Yeah. Nobody wore this kind of demographic badge for to be a victim or to separate us. And it's not that nobody cared. Nobody knew I was Muslim, not because I hid it, but nobody asked. No. It was based on who you are and your merit, and if you were cool, you were not. And that's what I want to go back to. But what Sadiq Khan has done is he's put everyone in these demographic boxes for victimhood, or, you're going to be prioritised over that person. And that's got to stop. And I think the reason a lot of Muslims don't speak up is there is this fear from radical Islam that they come after you. I mean, remember Salman Rushdie had a fatwa.
You know what I said the other day? You'll love this. I thought there was a real irony. We go it again, we've been saying it for days, whether you agree with that, we should have been with the Americans and the Israelis in that initial strike. I remember starting the show on Monday and saying, how ironic that so many of the Muslim communities hate the Jews. Fact. How extraordinary that on that day, the Israelis stood shoulder to shoulder and released millions of Muslims from the oppression of the Ayatollah Khomeini's rule. We saw great things in London. Iranians and Muslims. But that's what's perpetrated. That language is perpetrated by the very people that you're saying. Sorry, go on.
I'll just go back to when I was young. I used to go diving in the Red Sea, and it was on the border of Israel, and it was near Eilat.
Yeah.
And we'd all climb Mount St. Catherine to get the sunset where Moses got his 10 Commandments, and then we climbed down.
Been.
Yeah. And when I was about 18, 19, and it would be Egyptians and Middle Easterns with the Israelis, and we'd all hang out. And that generation, my generation of that time, we all wanted peace. We're like, we're all human. But I find this generation is very radicalised. It's very dangerous.
Well, I think that's at the hands of politicians. Let's go to London. Yeah. And actually, Reform get accused of that, of course. They're called divisive and right-wing. Martin, you're through to Layla Cunningham. Good morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Morning, Layla.
Morning.
Yeah, my question is, in the last 6 months, I've seen 2 people have their phones stolen in the exact same spot. So my question is, if you become mayor, as I hope you do, will there be an increase in visible policing?
Oh, 100%. And I've been contacted by so many people in the Met who want to leave the Met and join my campaign. I'm going to... what happens... We have 32,000 officers, and they are bogged down with paperwork. And another thing is, a lot of them don't have a touchdown, which means somewhere where they can... there used to be local police stations.
Yeah.
They have nowhere to go.
Nowhere.
So I want to have pop-up police stations in high streets, in abandoned
shops.
Not
pop-up mosques, pop-up police stations. Imagine.
Because I want a presence. I think there should be visible policing everywhere. I spend a lot of time on Oxford Street speaking to women, just central London, where actually knife crime is the highest. I never, ever see a police
Yeah, because it's been pedestrianised and you can't get a police car down there.
That's another thing. But I never ever see police. So visible policing will be a #1 priority.
Do you remember
it's
that clip with David Lammy? Have you seen it?
No.
David Lammy said it. It's the best clip ever, saying, the problem with London is you cannot see a policeman anywhere. And he carries on and the policeman walks right behind him in the screen and then walks off. Thank you, Martin, for your call.
But Martin, can I just say, in a city of 9 million, Sadiq Khan, we only have 2 24-hour counters that are open.
That's outrageous.
I mean, that is outrageous.
Listen, this is really interesting as well. This is from Sarah. Measles cases in London. Recent data from the UK Health Security Agency shows how quickly the virus is spreading, certainly in parts of London. In Enfield alone, 16 new cases were recorded in the past week, with a further 10 confirmed in neighbouring Haringey. Sarah says, wow, would you encourage or help people to take the measles vaccines?
Yeah, I mean, I believe in the MMR. My kids are all vaccinated with the MMR vaccine. Measles can be dangerous.
Yes,
a friend of mine's, and has had serious repercussions. And I thought we were over this scaremongering of the MMR.
Listen, I work in a building where the minute anybody talks about vaccines, I have to go home, because then they'll start talking about face masks and then I'll start crying. It's too much. I took, this will make you laugh, I took the flu jab this year for the first time ever, and I haven't had the flu. I've said it now, haven't I? But actually, last year was awful. Yes, there should be more information about it.
I think the MMR, vaccines are an incredible invention when done right and when needed and when they prevent illnesses. They should be taken. All my kids are vaccinated.
Footnote,
but
by
it should
the way,
be a personal choice.
Thought I'd put this in there. Could I just point this out? Do you know Hannah Green's attachment to vaccines at all? Nobody said this in the campaign. I had to keep very quiet because of Purda. Her husband's the deputy boss of AstraZeneca, and she's a multi-millionaire who lives outside the constituency. Nobody said that in the campaign. That would have been quite useful to have said, the woman in green, wouldn't it?
True.
What do you make of the Greens?
What we said, the Greens, people need to know, the leader of the Greens took advantage of insecure women by falsely telling them he can hypnotise them to have larger breasts. They want to legalise Class A drugs. They want illegal migrants to be welcomed and, well, I'd say prioritised over British people, because they're not, and that is a danger. He wants to get rid of Trident in this day and age. He thinks he can sit down.
No, he should get on a plane and go over and say, hello, Mr. Putin, you're a reasonable
That's what I mean. He actually thinks, the arrogance of the man, thinks that he can go and negotiate with Putin and Putin will listen to him.
But it frightens me that people are believing that crap. That worries me.
They don't know all that. I've spoken to quite a few people, younger people who want... But you know what, Jeremy? They do tap into something that I think has to be addressed, is that young people are not having a chance at success in London. Home ownership is, we have 20, 30, 40-year-olds that will never own a home, and a state that can't provide for it. And this is my message to young people, is the Greens, Labour and Conservative have put so much excessive regulation on construction and building, and it is a betrayal to them because there's a lack of supply. I speak to home builders who have just given up on building homes, and that affects young people. But not only that, when you have excessive regulation, it creates a monopoly at the top, because only the big companies can absorb all the cost of regulation, and you don't get the houses that people really want because it's a monopoly. And so I want to deregulate the construction. I don't want to punish developers as councils and the mayor does. They're giving us a product that we desperately need.
Absolutely.
I want to encourage it.
Final question. There's about as much chance of him listening to this as there is of me working for the BBC or you joining the Communist Party with me. Your message to Sadiq Khan, who you plan to stand against, what would you say to him?
I'll say that London doesn't belong to him. His time's up. And he needs to start packing.
Brilliant. Great to have you, mate. Somebody says, morning, Jez, you do like alliteration, don't you? Ring Rob, talk to Tom, call Cunningham. Perhaps you should call your show Jabber to Jezza, says Ivor in Chelmsford. Ivor, you need another job. Layla Cunningham, when are you coming back? 2 weeks' time?
Yeah.
We need this woman regularly. It's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for your texts. That was Call Cunningham with Layla Cunningham. I was trying to think of something beginning with L, but it all went wrong, hopelessly.
Listen to Layla, I guess. What's a bit boring.
Very good. Layla!
But
no, never mind.
Nobody wants to listen to me. They want to ask questions.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Layla Cunningham, this is Talk Breakfast.
across the UK. On DAB+, on YouTube, on your mobile, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, 9:45. Alex Phillips is live and exclusive from 10 o'clock. Ian Collins, the housewife's choice and Mrs. Carl's favourite. She says he's got a sexy voice. She doesn't sound like that at all. And I'm only brave, by the way, in public. I'm terrified at home. And, of course, Kevin O'Sullivan is on from 4 o'clock this afternoon. I want to get through some of these texts before we finish because you've been so good to write them, and bless your heart. Kerry in Coventry. Morning, Jez. After discovering Iran could strike us, I have a couple of questions. Would the USA come to our aid? Does our idiot in charge know this? Is he making preparations to protect us? Just a short addition as a South African with British heritage and grandparents who participated in World War II. I am horrified by what Britain has become, thinking of trying my luck in the US and taking my small business with me, but it is breaking my heart to think it, as my dream of moving to my ancestral home and contributing to the greatest country in the world is beginning to lie in tatters. Kev, good morning. Keir and his wife are in bed. Can you imagine? And Keir says, she says, do you fancy it, Keir? And he says, well, I'll just have to check with the international law book to see how that stands. That would be great. That's foreplay. Foreplay in the Keir household is to check the international playbook. Derek's in Newell in Derbyshire. Good morning, Jez. Every morning since Talk went on air, I've turned on my TV to watch, but for 20 months, just after Keir and his band of idiots got in, I've woken up early and turned on Talk thinking, things can't get any worse. But guess what? Excuse me. They do every single month. Just don't eat a biscuit when you're doing a radio programme, Kyle. What is the matter with you? Yes, I know we've got a voice note. Sean, morning.
Morning, Jeremy. Sean in Leicester. Oh, my God, I'm holding my head in my hands. While the world is going to hell in a handcart, our country's finest, allegedly, are pouncing about, dancing. Can you imagine how the other leaders of countries that want to do us harm are thinking about us as a nation when we've got people pouncing about instead of actually doing what we should be doing? And mate, I love listening to your show, but seriously, it literally makes my blood boil. Anyway, have a good day. Almost Friday.
I'm not sure whether that's a compliment, but I take it my blood boils as well, Shawnee. Thank you very much indeed. Rich says, JK, surely there must be an investigation now on embassy approval with the new Chinese spy scandal. Listen, it ain't going to happen because he's probably in cahoots with them. Alan Withy. At least we now know why the government don't deploy the Navy into the Channel to repel the small boats, because the Navy wouldn't work and the ships would probably sink. Brilliant. Julia Forrest. Morning, Jez. My husband Steve sent you the message yesterday about dragging its feet. He's over the moon. You keep saying it. Well, he's come up with another one for the ship HMS Duncan. It's Duncant. Hey, Stevie boy, HMS Duncant. Julia and Mansfield, brilliant, love it. Thank you very much indeed. John Ward, Starmer and Phillips. This is interesting. Jess Phillips constantly talk about the safety and protection of girls and women is mightily important, yet nothing shows that to be the truth. The raping of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of young white girls by largely Pakistani Muslims is the biggest miscarriage of justice in my time. I'm 60 like you, Jez. At the same time, they still haven't implemented the Supreme Court's ruling on women-only toilets. They won't. Deborah, good morning. MPs come dancing must have scared the crap out of our enemies. A grand display of the quality of the numpties we have running our country. What an absolute embarrassment this country has become. I'm ashamed, says Deborah, to call myself British. We'll finish this morning at 12 minutes to 10 to a man whose career has gone into the stratosphere whilst mine has sort of begrudgingly headed towards the sidings of mediocrity. Jack Elsom, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning,
God
Jeremy.
Of the sun. How are you, boy?
Yeah, not bad, thank you. It's a lovely day, isn't it?
Well, it was, and then I came into work. Jack, honestly, the Telegraph, I mean, couldn't get it better. As the world burns, MPs dancing. Now, I've had the do-gooders tell me it was something to do with cum dancing and mental health, but how the hell do you think that looks to the rest of the world whilst our elected politicians are doing their cha-cha and we can't even get a boat to get to Cyprus to protect British citizens?
Do you know what, Jeremy? You know me quite well. I'm quite a chilled out bloke. And I've been trying to really sort of get on board with this and seeing the great side of it. But something inside me just gets so annoyed when I saw this video yesterday, because you're right. You know, we have currently a conflict in the Middle East. We are somehow unable to mobilize our defenses to defend our own RAF bases. We're not even striking back against an evil despotic regime which has attacked us within yards of our military personnel. And what did we see yesterday in the heart of the mother of all democracies was MPs doing the cha-cha when they should be maybe at work. And listen, everyone wants a bit of fun in politics. And, you know, we don't want sort of killjoys wrecking everything. But I just think time and place. Think about how it looks to people. And I think that they did misjudge it yesterday. But, you know, it's a talker, isn't it?
It certainly is. Mate, yesterday I nearly combusted on air and everybody responded.
That's unlike you.
Yes. Today I came in to discover that there were states in the Middle East, like Bahrain, like the UAE, like Cyprus, criticising the Prime Minister. Overnight, Donald Trump said he's a loser, he's no future, he's got no friends. Sounds like me. We also learned today that there was Ed Miliband who led the cabinet revolt to not be involved in those partial initial strikes. And maybe, I haven't changed my opinion, but I do understand the people that will say, because of the experiences of Iraq, if it wasn't Starmer, who would say, we'll support with bases, but I don't want to be involved in the initial thing. But for me, the real tragedy here is that this man, just in almost every response, and certainly with this, whether it's HMS Dragon, whether it's... He just, to me, Jack, doesn't seem to be up to the job. He doesn't seem to have the gumption, the balls, the gravitas, whatever you want to call it, to be a leader, mate.
Yeah, and this is the problem. The fact we're reading this morning that Ed Miliband, Yvette Cooper, Shabana Mahmood led this cabinet backlash to letting the US use our air bases to help with these strikes is pretty shocking stuff. And the fact that the Prime Minister, we read, was actually at the start supportive of letting Donald Trump use these bases, but then was essentially kneecapped by his own cabinet. Just sort of speaks to a very weird, depressing situation going on in Number 10 right now, where the power is clearly flowing away from this prime minister and into other people in the party, namely Ed Miliband, clearly the standard bearer for the party's leftward flank. Now, clearly Keir Starmer, you know, is prime minister. He has the red box. He's currently ensconced in Number 10. Where is power really lying at the moment? And I would suggest that it is not with the prime minister seriously, but it is with a left-wing cabal inside the Labour Party, the MPs themselves, who want the prime minister to move further and further to the left. And because at the moment, the constituency which he has to rely on for his right to govern is not the country and the voters, but it is Labour MPs. And Labour MPs, we know, absolutely loathe Donald Trump. They loathe everything about him. They want the Prime Minister to take a much tougher line on Donald Trump. And that is at the moment what they are getting. And Keir Starmer, we don't really know what he thinks about many things, but he's being pulled from pillar to post by these people because he's on his last life with them. And he knows that if he doesn't essentially do things that they like, then he'll probably be out quite soon.
I mean, that's the point. That's not a leader, is it? At the end of the day, I mean, a leader has to... I mean, I said it all day, Jack, right? I could disagree with everything he says, but if he stood in front of me and said, that's what I believe in, that's what I'm doing, and if it doesn't pan out, I'll put my hands in the air, but that's what I'm going to do. You don't get that from him, and he has no power, and obviously, you know, look at the welfare cuts. The MPs are controlling him, and you know, I'm not necessarily saying that anybody should dance to Donald Trump's tune, but what Keir Starmer has shown himself to be is wholly misplaced in the role he's in. There's an exclusive, Jack, in The Sun today from Martina Betts, your colleague. Migrants will have to speak A-level standard English from next year before they can settle permanently in Britain. The language requirement is one of a raft of migration reforms. Shabana Mahmood will begin legislating today. Listen, I can't compliment this government. She seems to be a lone voice of some sense in a sea of mediocrity and madness. But she's not popular with the Labour Party because she's trying to do the right thing, is she?
No, she's swimming against the tide when it comes to this Labour government, Shabana Mahmood. She is, like you said, probably a singular voice in the cabinet who is desperate to fix the migration problems, because she knows, to be fair, that if Labour don't get a grip of migration, the next election will be totally fought on the immigration and the small boats issue. And who does that benefit? Not Labour, but Reform Party, and probably to a lesser extent the Tories as well. And so she wants to get a grip of this, one, for the party interest, but two, also clearly for the national interest as well. We are starting to see signs, depressing signs, that, again, left-wing MPs are trying to get her to water down her asylum reforms. The question now will be whether she can stay the course and really sort of stick to her guns in this clearly necessary asylum package today, or whether once again the left-wingers in the Labour Party get their way and she has to bend to it. At the moment, I don't see any sign of that, and she seems to be doing a very good job. But like you said, the membership really do not like her. And in every single membership poll that comes out, she is way, way down. And people like Ed Miliband are at the top. It's the total inverse of what is happening in the country, where Ed Miliband still sends shivers down people's spine from his role of almost becoming Prime Minister back in 2015, where Shabana Mahmood actually is quite popular.
Mate, before you go, I gave you a great line yesterday, HMS dragging your feet. Steve sent me another one. You know the other boat that could have gone HMS Duncan?
Yeah.
I'll give you this for the Sun, HMS Duncant. OK, that's a new one for you.
Yeah, don't quit the day job, Jeremy. I mean, HMS dragging your feet was very good, and we used that in the paper yesterday. But
what about Duncant? No? Duncant no good?
I'm not sure that's going to cut it, I'm afraid.
You just get into Parliament and see if you can find a Chinese spy, because that's the other main story. Listen, mate, as ever, fantastic to have you on. Jack Elson, political editor of The Sun. Thank you, mate. We messed him around with time. Another one consigned to the dustbin of broadcasting history. Thank you to everybody who's been on. I have to say, if you missed my clash with Labour MP Tom Hayes, I'll just say he was good enough to come here. But it's quite fiery. That's on YouTube, as is my first call. Cunningham, we're back tomorrow morning, 6 o'clock. It's at your place, nice and early. Thank you to the team. Stand by. Alex Phillips at 10. The excellent Ian Collins from 1. And, of course, Kevin on Drive. We'll see you tomorrow from 6. Ta-ra. The Green Party have won the Denton and Gorton by-election. Labour in third place.
Breaking news that Peter Mandelson has now been arrested. So Mandy and Andy have now both had their collars felt.
What would Andrew Loney tell them to do?
To come clean, be honest. And if Charles is complicit in this cover-up, which I believe he is, then I think he has to fall on his sword.
When you define sex, what your gender or sex, what you mean is biological sex, and that's a man or woman, what you are physically, not what you think you are on a Wednesday afternoon.